and friends.
Yeah, you're going to have to work on a new audio apparatus for that one there, Liberace.
It's the Xanax episode. I wish I was on it. It would make things a lot easier. I'm your host, the great Brian Last. This is Jim Cornette's Drive Thru, another fun edition. I already messed up the intro, but it gets better from here. We have lots of talk. We have a rock, maybe a hard place, so much more. With this man, the leader of the cult of Cornette, the man who will be answering your questions, Mr. Jim Cornette.
No, Brian Last, don't be introducing me like that anymore, and don't be talking to me like that. And now that I'm a big time movie star, I'm in the show business. I'm trotting the footlights and thespianing against the limelight, and up on the silver tinsel for all of people to screen. You need to start calling it Jimmy Baby Sweetie.
Really?
You know, hey, hell yeah, we got to do lunch. Hey, your people get with my people, and they'll have more people, and it will do a blockbuster, and it'll be a mega hit, and it, you know, and we'll be working for MCA. So it's more of that now, because I'm fixed to be a movie star here very shortly. You know, whenever the people are listening to this,
whenever MCA comes back, yeah.
Well, hey, when Ronnie Van Zant comes back, MCA will come back. The Queen of the Ring is being released nationally, as they say, in theaters near you on March the 7th. And by the time that the people, the cult of Cornette, hear this program, I will have attended the world premiere. We get it before anybody else because it was shot here in Louisville, Kentucky. I'll have attended the world premiere, and we'll have a report on that. And possibly some video as well, because Hotchkiss Featherbottom may be attending. Is daggum theater, Stony Brook, where the debut is taking place. It's so close to that school that Hotchkiss is afraid he might be within 500, but he's going to try to be on one side of the theater.
Don't even make that kind of joke. I know he's a weirdo and a nutcase and just completely incompetent when it comes to computers, and the last person you would ever want to trust with your computer or anything else, but let's not go too far.
Well, no, because he did that school's computer system, and they've got a very large financial judgment against him, and he doesn't want to get too close because they could have one of the security guards could tackle him. But anyway, we might have some video on the YouTube channel, but as well, the premiere will have premiered.
What did you say? Premiered?
The premiere will have premiered is what I was about to say, premiered, and I tried to stop myself, and it came out from under. But anyway, the premiere will have taken place, and we'll have a report on that upcoming on the programs as well. But in theaters near you, March the 7th, Queen of the Ring, where I play again a small, but can I not stress, a pivotal role. I'm thinking. That's the point here, Brian. I'm thinking maybe best supporting actor. Do they have an Oscar, an Academy Award for best cameo?
No,
I don't mean the kind that people buy individually. I mean a cameo, a small appearance in a major motion flick.
So you've watched yourself on TV for years. How do you think you're going to deal with watching yourself on the big screen?
Well, my forehead has gotten bigger even on television over the years, at least taller. So I think it'll just be a case of, my head being larger is good because more people can see me more clearly. See me more clearly day by day. I advise people to go and see the movie every day. It'll get the gimmick. Is AMC the ones that nearly bankrupted themselves with that gimmick where you could buy the card and you could see any movie any amount of times you wanted, and then they had to cut back on it and people got hot because they were losing their ass? Do you have any idea what I'm speaking of, Brian?
It sounds familiar.
Well, I'll hum a few bars if you'd like. But anyway, so yes, the movie, and we're going to go to the premiere and we're going to come back and tell the people about it, and maybe there'll be video, and you've maligned Hotchkiss all that you're going to. But back to me, because that's always a safe subject. Now that I'm in the show business, you know, we got to gear things up around here because the show is going to explode even more than it has already. I'm going to be known now as the final boss of podcasting because I'm going to be on TV. I'm going to be in the movies. I'm going to be on the podcast, on the YouTube. You'll be picking me up on the fillings in people's teeth. So address me in the manner in which I'm one of the movers and shakers now that has a pinwheel or a flywheel that reaches all of the branches of entertainment. What was it, a flywheel or a pinwheel?
It was a flywheel, and obviously we'll talk later on about another delusional person
who's part of the flywheel.
Part of the flywheel and calls himself the final boss. Or possibly
the fly in the ointment.
Oh my God. Don't even say anything because I have not talked to you about it. I have no idea what you're going to say, and everyone's been bombarding me because whenever it started, whenever The Rock started reappearing and I started calling him out for his shit, there were a lot of people who really didn't like that. And slowly but surely, and in large part thanks to The Rock, people have come along.
You couldn't ever have done it without The Rock, Brian.
I couldn't have done it without him. I want to thank Dwayne Johnson. But more and more people are seeing it, and I don't want to say anything until we review it, but whatever the hell he did the other night on SmackDown deserves a full recap, and we'll get there.
It's deserving of something.
Well, we'll get there after we get to Cornette's collectibles.
But actually now, at this point, where are we in the year, Brian? Is it still February? Or the people are going to hear this right at the ass end of the month of February, aren't they?
The tail end of February, correct.
So they may have been left out, and hopefully you haven't been, because there'd be no recourse then. Your life would be ruined because you'd never make it up to yourself if you got left out of the February sale at JimCornette.com amongst the Cornette's Collectibles merchandise. But if it's still February, then you can still get $20 off every Heavenly Bodies or Midnight Express Tag Team action figure set. And if you buy a aforesaid set, you can also get any of the remaining non-sold out Jim Cornette action figure variants for half price, and they're all autographed. And if you spend more than $50, you get a free classic wrestling 2-hour DVD from the Wrestling Gold series. And also, again, Hotchkiss Featherbottom's loving care in shipping these things to you. And believe it or not, as I promised, by the end of February, we will be within about a 5 to 7 day turnaround of me signing stuff and it actually being shipped, and some potentially quicker than that. So we're catching up, or we've caught up. Whenever you hear this, it's either present tense or past tense. JimCornette.com. And do you know?
I do.
You don't know what I'm going to say yet.
I thought it was like Jeopardy. I'm supposed to jump and try to get it first, but okay.
Well, and you still didn't phrase it in the form of a question.
Who is I know?
Well,
What is I know? How is I know?
Well, they're not doing very well. They're dead. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Do you know who's dead?
I do, Jerry.
Well, now you're laughing because you're embarrassed because you've made mockery of the dead.
Jerry Butler, the Iceman. I was very sorry to see that this past week. I think his version of Moon River is like one of the greatest recordings ever.
Well, that's not the person I'm talking about.
Oh.
Somebody else died this week around the world. 2 people dying on the earth in the same week is shocking enough, but who this was, you don't know.
I don't know. I'm not sure where you're going. No.
Do they have the Jeopardy, Final Jeopardy music? Fucking say Roberta Flack.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Flack was 88 years old, and she just apparently died, according to Twitter. And
is it killing me softly or killing me silently? I didn't hear anything about it.
Well, have you been on Twitter in the last? I got on the Twitter trying to find this fakakta new fucking audio apparatus you got going on here, and saw that's what they're saying. So if she's still breathing, she needs to hurry up and die, because Twitter can't be wrong. But that's a shame. killing me softly with this. I know what you're going to say. I'm killing you with all of my songs. But no, that nobody else in the world could have sung that song as flawlessly and brilliantly as Roberta Flack. A virtuoso performance. And I saw a live clip they had on Twitter, and it sounded exactly like the record. She was amazing, amazing. But do you know, Brian Last, that she did not write that song? The whole song is centered on her heart being ripped out by hearing apparently an ex-lover singing a song about her deepest, darkest, horriblest thoughts and feelings, and it's just heart-wrenching to her, and she didn't write the song. But that is a lesson to the people out there, because sometimes the writer cannot perform, and the performer didn't necessarily have to be the one to write if they can interpret it. It's a collaboration. It's a give and take. Brian, it's an intercourse, is what I'm saying. So think about that.
Okay, so that's one down. Who was the second person to die this past week?
Well, whoever the fuck you just said, Jerry Butler. I thought he was a porn star from the 70s.
The Iceman. He started out with Curtis Mayfield. He had Find Yourself Another Girl. He Don't Love You Like I Love You.
Wait a minute. He did He Don't Love You Like I Love You. If he did, he wouldn't break your heart?
Yeah, Jerry Butler.
Well, shit, now I'm sorry.
Yeah, but his version of Moon River is one of the most beautiful recordings ever. The song's great, and Andy Williams got all the credit for it because he got to do it at the Oscars or whatever it was. But the recording that Jerry Butler put out, the guitar tone, everything about that is just a perfect record.
And then along comes Andy Williams, like what was he, the Pat Boone of movie themes, stealing other people's work?
Yeah, the whitest of the white guys came and got all the, he didn't steal it. I mean, it wasn't like Jerry Butler wrote the song, but his version is the best record, I think, the best sound that you'll ever hear of that song. But Jerry, how do you think that stacks up against Buddy Landel's version of Moon River? The one, I've never seen the footage, so I can't tell you. Somehow, when I got the commercial tape, some joker took all the good stuff out of it. I didn't get to see any of that. The listeners may not know what we're talking about, but us tape traders know we were ripped off.
I will elaborate in a second, but to answer that, I'm pretty sure that didn't make TV or the VHS tape. But ladies and gentlemen, what it was, and in hindsight, we can laugh about these things after, let's see, it was 33 years ago. So I think we got to the laughing part about, 6 or 7 years ago. No.
Was that the first fire on the mountain?
Yes.
That's right. 92.
In Johnson City, Tennessee, Freedom Hall. And it was an I Quit match between White Lightning Tim Horner and Nature Boy Buddy Landel. And Buddy couldn't stand Horner at the time, and nobody particularly blamed him, especially in hindsight. But Buddy was also his needle was heading toward the bad Buddy side of the gauge instead of the good Buddy that came back and worked for us much longer in 95. But he couldn't stand Horner, and they were working this program, and I had plans for Buddy to do bigger things, but we needed to keep everybody busy. We had 14 guys in the territory, so, this is going to happen. So they're working a little program. It's an I Quit match just because it's a big show and blah, blah, blah. And Horner gets him I can't remember what it was. A fucking arm bar submission or a fucking some kind of abdominal stretch or whatever. And Hildebrand's the referee, I think. And he takes the microphone and puts it down in front of fucking Buddy's face. Do you give? And Buddy goes, Moon River. God damn it. God damn it. And so that's when unfortunately we had to part ways for a while, because even then I'd rather have kept Buddy if his head was right and got rid of Horner. Buddy was the one that was exposing the business when the company wasn't 6 months old. So he had to go after TV the following Monday.
In hindsight, that was just his way of saying, I quit.
Yeah, that may have been the first I quit match in history where the guy actually quit the company.
That was the thing about Buddy. He was such a good heel in different roles. Like with Butch Reed, he was kind of like the goofy sidekick. And not goofy, but just I don't know how to describe it. He was troublemaker.
Well, here's the thing. He was like the fucking Eddie Haskell and Lumpy Rutherford rolled into one. He was the high school kid that hung around the guy that was really the badass because he had a big mouth, and that way the badass could back him up. But he wasn't a goddamn nerd, but he thought he was greater than he was and wanted to hang out with the cool kids type of thing in Mid-South, in that locker room atmosphere, I guess, for lack of a better term. That's kind of where he was at with Butch and everybody. And because he was still only 22 years old. So it was perfect because he was always that fucking guy. He excelled at a lot of things on his own, but he always had that big mouth and he wanted to be, you know.
See, that's the thing. He was always a heel, but he was a heel that even if you hated heels, he would make you laugh. Now, Moon River's a bit of a step too far, but the Bill and Buddy show, the stuff in Mid-South, him and Butch Reed in the gym. I used to hear a story from Philadelphia fans.
Yeah, and by the way, that was the same thing in real life. He was a heel that would make you laugh. You could be so fucking mad at him for his goddamn various actions and faults, but at the same time, it was Buddy. It softened it so much because he always made you laugh. Or how can you just want to choke him? Really? Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, but what I was going to say is Philadelphia fans have always talked about him and JT Smith. And they're working, and JT Smith was the young guy, the local guy that worked for Goodhart and Todd Gordon. And he's working with Buddy.
It.
And the crowd got quiet enough. Buddy just yells, not even yell, Buddy just says very loudly, "Sell, you bitch!" and chops him. And that's the thing that the fans remember. They don't remember the chop or the selling. They remember, "Sell, you bitch."
Oh, and I mean, that's the thing. You know, Buddy would come into the goddamn room, whether it be the lobby of the hotel or the fucking locker. Sometimes he'd come in the locker room dragging his bag, long trip, looked like shit. But whenever on a plane, whenever he could make somewhat of an entrance, he would come in. The equivalent of Flair would always have the 3-piece suit on and the sunglasses, and he'd have the belt bag in one hand and he'd be brushing his hair with the other hand. Buddy would be sometimes in flip-flops and gym shorts and a fucking tank top and have an old fucking gear bag draped over his shoulder, but he'd have the sunglasses on and he'd be brushing his hair. He would act the same way like Flair did in this $5,000 suit walking in and whatever the fuck, and have a bank bag that they started carrying before the fanny pack, and he'd tuck it under his arm. "Hey, baby, I'm here. You ready to go?" It just...
I got to see both sides in one day once in New Jersey. It was when it was one of the Eddie Gilbert Memorial brunches, lunches, whatever it was, that Dennis did in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Was it a Holiday Inn? I forget exactly what it was. I think it was the Holiday Inn.
It was.
And Buddy, during the day, 3-piece suit, or maybe not 3-piece, but suit, talking about religion, has his shit together, on his best behavior. Bill Watts is there. Bill Watts is putting him over.
I was there.
Yeah, I filmed it. You were there too.
Yes.
And Bill Watts is putting over Buddy as how he's got his life together, but he was such a rascal back in the day. Later on that night, I'm hanging out with like Mark Carluzzo and Donnie B, and I'm in front of the hotel. I don't know where they got a pickup truck. A pickup truck shows up in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and I don't know who was driving. I don't remember which stooge it was, but Buddy's in the passenger seat with Dawn Marie on his lap. And, and again, you know, two sides of Buddy. What he goes, "Hey, Brian, you got any pain pills?" And I said, "Buddy, I'm 16. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "No, Buddy, don't worry about it. Have fun." I don't know what's going on.
I'm not old enough to hurt yet.
I don't know what's going on in that pickup truck over there. But funny guy. And you know what? The saddest thing is we never got to see what was going to happen. He wasn't going to become the world champion, but they brought him in to wrestle Flair. I mean, you brought him in, really. I mean, it was you behind it. And he got hurt right away, and we never got to see Buddy Landel on a national stage at that point. How funny could he have been at that point?
Well, and now you say they brought him in to wrestle Flair. Which time are you talking
Excuse me.
about?
I said Flair. Bret Hart. Excuse me. Bret Hart is what I was thinking of.
Well, but
That was what, 95?
that was December of 95, because here was the thing. Before we knew, or before I was sure that we were closing Smoky Mountain, I had already arranged one way or another that we got somebody in the Royal Rumble. Because remember, in those days, they didn't have a roster where it could just be, 30 of their regular guys. A Harvey Whippleman would have been in the thing at one point. And they would always have maybe a legend and a surprise from blah, blah, blah. And so since we were working together, I got to have somebody that was going to be in the Rumble, and to expose them on television, leading up to it, so people would halfway know who the fuck they were. And we did a deal in Smoky Mountain. I think that may have been one of the last things we did. No, we didn't get that far because Rumble was in January. But we were going to do something where the winner, blah, 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 between him and Brad and whatever. Point I'm making with this rambling story is he goes up to do the TV in December. And I think this was the same infamous WWF TV taping with Boo Bradley as Santa Claus.
Oh,
it might
that's
have been.
Right. Yeah, that was around the same time. I think you may be right.
Yes. And it's fucking wherever we were, they flew in and out of Philly. So Buddy is going to the Philadelphia airport to the hotel there. I won't call the brand name. I don't remember which one it was. Not germane to the point of the story. It had snowed. It was icy. He goddamn, some way or another. Now, he said it was snowy and icy, which it was outside, whether it was right underneath him or not. But he slips and falls. And when he does, the power hotel door somehow opened out instead of in or whatever. And in a freak deal, he got his leg caught between falling and the door opening on it, and it fucked his knee up. And he did have to have some kind of surgery. And I mean, this certainly wasn't a deal. He was trying to get out of work. He missed a Royal Rumble because of this fucking thing. And he tried to sue somehow, and I don't know where that went. That was 30 years ago, and it was Buddy, not necessarily the most reliable witness. But that's what fucked him up, and he never got another chance at that. Because I remember he called me with Jeff. I said, "You what?" The door opened out, and I slid under. I said, "Oh, God damn it!"
He came back to
anyway.
He was back in WCW briefly in 1990, but I think it may have been right after you left the booking committee. Did he ever come up from like 89 until 90 when you were on the team with Flair and Sullivan? Did you ever bring up Buddy, or did anyone ever bring up Buddy? What did Flair think of Buddy at that point?
I think everybody was scared to bring up Buddy. Not scared to, but at that time, remember, Flair was the booker when I was on the creative team, and Flair was the fucking champion that was supposed to be shooting an angle with goddamn Buddy the last time he had fucking no-showed him on a more important spot that they were willing to give him at that point. So am I going to say, hey, Buddy, the fuck? He had taken a hammer to my head. That's the thing, is that, Buddy always got the chance in Memphis because they were forgiving of everyone, because talk about a fucking politician at various points, either Jarrett or lawyer. Jarrett or Lawler, especially Jarrett, would qualify there as a politician, but they could make up with anybody, and also out of necessity. But in a lot of other cases, it had to be somebody in a position of importance that you hadn't previously done the same thing that you're probably about to do again to, for them to. So I don't think Buddy didn't come up in that short period of time. And then it was JR when Flair had quit as head booker, and it became more of a committee. I think that's JR kind of, well, let's give him another chance. And I mean, I can't remember he was any, more responsible in his personal time, trying to figure out a way to say that at that point that he was at some points, but he, I think, made all of his shots for quite a while.
Do you think it would have been different if he had all the same substance abuse issues at different points, but he had stayed in really good shape? Like in 84, he got in amazing shape. And he never was really in that shape again. If he had been, would he have had other opportunities, like with WWF or something, even with his problems?
No, I don't think he would have had more opportunities if he looked physically in any of the other years like he did in 1984, because again, stories about the spectacularness of Buddy's behavior sometimes precluded. They knew he could work his ass off, and all you need to do was let him talk. And if he had his shit together, he was going to be dressed and look good and do the nature boy thing. Or you were going to get the fucking, Bruiser Bedlam fucking Jim, not t-shirt, but fucking tank top, whatever, Buddy, with the flip-flops and the, hey, if it don't snow, we can't go. And that, then he needs to be in a little territory where he's driving everywhere, because he doesn't need to be in hotels and planes on a regular basis, that type of thing. So his immense talent, the reputation, it didn't matter about his physique. They knew he could look good if he wanted to.
All right. Well, rest in peace, Roberta Flack and Jerry Butler.
And Buddy.
And Buddy, of course. Jim, as we move along here with the show, before we get going too far, because of popular
We haven't gone anywhere yet.
Because of popular demand, let's do it one more time briefly to get us in a good mood. WWE trademark name or porn star?
Oh, shit.
I have a list of names here of adult film actors and actresses, allegedly. And I also have a list here of names that within the past 2 years, WWE has trademarked. Now, some of these names might have gotten on NXT TV. I really don't know, because it's a bad show. I don't care what any of you say. The NXT fans are like early AEW fans. It's great. Shut up. It's great. Watch the girls. You'll love the girls. Shut up. It's a bad show. But Jim, are you ready for this?
Yes, I am ready to determine which person is in which profession.
Kendall Gray. Is that a wrestler or a porn star?
That sounds like a kind of a generic NXT girl name. I'll go with it. It doesn't have any provocativosity. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mispronounce that. Of any kind of porn star that would tickle your taint.
Well, apparently you are right. That is a WWE trademark name.
See?
Very good.
There you go.
Jim, what about Laney Reed?
Laney Reed. How is Laney spelled?
I'll spell the whole name for you. LAINEYREID.
Okay. I'm thinking that's also an NXT name, because that violates the rule that I just talked about, that she's got to have more Y's. Wouldn't have had an I, but a Y in her last name if she was a porn star. They like Y's.
Okay, that is indeed a WWE trademark name. You're 2 for 2 today.
Boom!
Jim, what about Carly Bright?
Oh, Carly Bright. That sounds very, very suspiciously like a porn name. And I think she's probably got the librarian gimmick with the studious glasses and a book bag slung over her shoulder and a short skirt with potentially a lollipop and some bows in her hair. Do you have a sketch artist to be taking this down?
I can't confirm or deny what you're saying here, but it's interesting.
But yeah, so I'm going in that direction.
What direction is that?
She's a porn star.
Carly Bright is a WWE trademark name.
Well, maybe that was still the gimmick. I'm taking submissions for sketches.
All right, Jim, wrestler or porn star? Dragon Lee. No, I'm kidding. Let's go to another name here. Jim, wrestler or porn star? Jada Fire.
Oh, now we get to the porn stars.
What makes you say that?
Well, because she's fire. She's a redhead, and she's got the Bam Bam Bigelow flames tattooed up her yin yangs to the malfunction at the junction, and she's got the leather zabadas. Yeah, she's a porn star. She's hot.
Well, you're right and you're wrong. Jada Fire is indeed a hot porn star. She's an African-American woman. Here's a bio. Jada Fire.
Does she still have the fire? Even
there's
if
no
she doesn't
fire.
have the red hair, does she have the fire?
No red hair. There's none of these things that would incorporate with fire. Jada Fire, a legendary figure in the adult industry, was born in 1974. She built an impressive career with over 400 films to her name and numerous awards recognizing her exceptional performances. Though she retired in 2012, her influence remains strong, captivating fans and inspiring many. Actually, you know what? I take it back, even though the picture here doesn't show it. With her striking red hair and but the picture here doesn't have red hair. An electrifying presence on screen. Jada Fire isn't just a successful adult film star. She's also an entrepreneur, a passionate advocate for sex education, and a trailblazer in the industry. Sounds like you should have gotten that one. Well, you did, actually.
Well, I did. That's why I did.
You did? All right, let's get in.
I even you had to back up on the red hair deal.
Jim, Danny Daniels.
Danny Daniels. That could be a boy, or it could be a girl, because you got the DANNYs and you got the DANIs. And Daniel, that's kind of a bland, boy, that's too bland for porn. That's got to be NXT.
Danny Daniels is an adult film star. Beyond adult film, she hosts Dinner with Danny on Amazon Prime. Really? What the fuck? A roundtable discussion on porn, sex, and relationships. What the
every time I watch her anal scenes, I want to go to P.F. Chang's and eat.
Jim, Alexis Texas.
She's a porn star.
All right, sounds like you may be familiar with myth.
Don't you put Miss Texas's name in your mouth there, fella. I'll take that personally.
She has around 3.8 million Instagram followers. She's a member of the AVN Hall of Fame. At 21, while working in a restaurant, she was offered an opportunity to enter the adult film industry, marking the start of her career. She has a net worth of $3 million. All right, Jim.
Boom! That's a lot of fucking adult films.
Jim, well, there's two other people on this list. The next people, this one has a net worth of $3 million. This one has a net worth of $3 million. I don't know how accurate this is. Let's go here. Uriah Connors.
Uriah Connors. That has to be an NXT name.
That is indeed an NXT name. I'm not even gonna. That's a male-oriented name anyway, right? Like Uriah Heep. There were no girls in Uriah Heep, were there? I don't think so. All right, Jim.
Well,
Jim? What about Cutler James?
Well, again, are these male people? Are we considering them as porn stars
everyone, yes.
also? Because aren't the men in porn are basically just, they're the cake underneath the icing. They're just flour there to hold the fucking good stuff up. So should we, but sometimes you can't tell, like the Dannies.
Well, once again, Cutler James.
I think that's got to be NXT. That's also fairly bland.
Cutler James is indeed Well, at least a WWE trademark name. I don't know about NXT itself. What about Layla Diggs?
Layla Biggs or Diggs?
Diggs, D-I-G-G-S.
Layla Diggs. Boy, that might be a porn name. I'm going to go with the porn.
All right, well, unfortunately, Miss Diggs is a WWE trademark name. Jim, what about Nicole Aniston?
Okay, that's WWE because there's a lot of syllables in that. And it's, well, now think about this. How many great porn stars have multisyllabic names like that? That just first and last. You don't have time. You got to get the dick in the mouth and everything. So just say.
So what do you say? I'm Layla Diggs.
Hi, I'm Sika. So.
Well, Vanessa Del Rio took a little more time to spit out of your mouth, Jim, but what about Layla Diggs?
But now at the same time, she'd kick your ass if you didn't fucking. No, you said another name here a second ago.
I did?
It's what I was reacting to.
Oh. I thought you were reacting to Layla Diggs.
No, I thought you said it.
Oh, that's right. Nicole Aniston. Excuse me.
Nicole Aniston. It's too long. It's got to be a WWE name.
Nicole Aniston is a porn star.
Oh, well, no wonder she had never gone anywhere.
Jim, what about Caden Cross?
That I disqualify myself from because that's a WWE name. I've heard that name.
What do you mean you disqualify yourself? Why would you have to disqualify yourself as opposed to all the other ones?
Because I have prior knowledge. The rest of these motherfuckers are about as goddamn familiar to me as the dark side of the moon, but I know that name.
Well, tell me about Caden Cross. I don't remember. We've seen Caden Cross on TV?
I think we have. Wasn't she a little short girl? It was with the other girl. It was a little taller, but still not too tall because she was short.
Caden Cross is a porn star.
What?
She's worth apparently $4.5 million. I don't know why it has everyone's value here on this list here.
Wait a minute. Jesus Christ. If I'd have known this, I would have got into porn.
Maybe you're confusing. Is it Caden Carter and Killer Cross or Carrying Cross?
No. Carry Cross the Mercy. It was Caden. Now, what's her name?
Caden Cross.
Well, there was a Caden something that was a little short girl that was partners with the other short girl in NXT. Well, no wonder people are confusing the two.
Oh, I know you're talking about Katana Chance and Caden Carter. That's what you're talking about.
Whatever you just said. Yes.
Yeah. Whatever happened to them?
I don't know. I thought that was her.
Jim, what about Shiloh Hill?
Shiloh Hill, that's got to be a fucking porn name.
Give your reasoning for such
that's like a fucking, it sounds like, San Juan Hill, Shiloh. Shiloh Hill, I can't see that as a wrestling name.
Shiloh Hill is a WWE trademark name.
Ah, Christ.
And Jim, our final name here today, Violet Myers.
Oh, now you've got me shell-shocked. She wouldn't be the granddaughter of Jim Myers, a.k.a. George the Animal Steel. Violet Myers. It's an offensive name unless...
What?
It's yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, it's an inoffensive name.
I was gonna say, what am I missing? What did she do to you?
No. It's an inoffensive name. It's not like there is a porn double entendre going on here, unless she comes out in all of her movies with violets hanging out of her hoo-ha. And it sounds like one of the young, peppy, cheerful WWE trainees. So I'm going to go with the final one is a WWE trademark name.
Violet Myers is a porn actress.
So she does come out with violets hanging out of her hoo-ha.
Or maybe she's a wrestler. I don't know. Known for her curvy figure and cosplay performances,
Narrow it down.
Violet has quickly garnered a large following. She's a big anime fan and often incorporates...
Narrow it down!
And often incorporates that into her performances.
Narrow it down! We still don't know wrestler or porn star.
Well, this has been edition 2 of Wrestler or Porn Star. Hope you're playing along at home with your pants on. But Jim, as we move forward here with the show, I think moving forward right now is probably a great idea.
Great idea.
On the topic of great ideas, a great idea may be protein in your body, protein for your muscles, you ingesting protein to save the day, save your day, build your body, build your mind. Orgain. Jim.
Yes.
I think we need to tell the people about our good friends with the delicious product, Orgain. Of course.
Do you like the Orgain, Brian?
I think the Orgain is delicious and, of course, nutritious, and I drink one every single day. I drink one after I work out. I drink one in the morning. My biceps are bulging. How you doing, Jim? Orgain. All right, what our friend here is trying to say is, of course, protein is a part of any doctor's recommendation for a way that you can, well, we shouldn't talk about what doctors, listen, you want protein.
Don't speak for a doctor now there, fellow.
Ask the wrestlers. You need protein.
I'll tell you what they're saying out on the street. Out on the street, these are not doctors now. These are just people that you find out on the street. And folks, I encourage you, tonight about 9, 10 o'clock, when it's good and dark outside, go to a really dark part of town and just walk up and down the streets and talk to the people that you meet there and ask them if they have any protein that you could possibly guzzle down and see what your response is. Every single one of them will hold up a bottle of Orgain or a container of Orgain. You can't really call that a bottle, Brian, because it's cardboard. But I'll tell you what, Orgain's new 30-gram complete protein shakes offer protein-packed real nutrition designed to satisfy your cravings without any added sugar. And if you're out on the street late at night after dark asking people for protein, you can satisfy some other cravings at the same time. Plus...
Well, hold on. I don't even know what you're saying here. You don't need to be on the streets for your protein. That's one of the wonderful things about Orgain. They will just ship it right to your door. Stay indoors. Don't cause trouble. Build your muscles. Protein. Orgain.
Well, I'm just saying, you got to talk to the people that are out on the streets to get the idea of who's drinking the protein and what they like, and they like the Orgain. Every time you go up a dark street with the street light out and you approach a gentleman wearing a long trench coat with boots, you're going to fucking say, hey, what kind of source of protein should I have? And every time he's going to whip right out of his raincoat,
well, hold on,
a container of Orgain protein shakes. It's what everybody's drinking these days because they've figured out that the Orgain 30-gram protein shakes taste like a chocolate milkshake, just without the death-bringing qualities that ice cream holds. And they got no added sugar, just protein and more protein. So that way it tastes good, it's less filling, and it's got the protein. But you talk to anybody on the street, don't go to doctors. They're too fucking hotsy-totsy for their own good. You go right out to the people that are wanting to pump up on protein, and they'll tell you about Orgain. Shouldn't it be Orgain?
If they have an accent, they may tell you about protein.
Well, I only sell protein and protein accessories, but remember, folks, there are no quick fixes when it comes to your health.
No,
but if you want more protein powders, protein bars, protein shakes, tons of other protein-packed products, go to Orgain.com, Orgain.com/Jim, and use the code JIM, J-I-M, for 30% off of your order of whatever you order. So you can get the shakes, you can get the powder, you can turn the powder into shakes, and then you'll have the shakes from all of this protein. Orgain.com/Jim. Use the code Jim for 30% off your order. That's the best offer you're going to fucking get, folks. Take it or leave it. You can just sit out there and be a bunch of fat, miserable fucks that haven't been able to look down and see your dick since the fucking previous presidential administration. Or you can start working on yourself, get a little exercise, hop up and down every now and then, and put the cake down and have an Orgain 30-gram protein shake at the top of the morning to you. Orgain.com/Jim. Use the code Jim, 30% off. I'm done here.
Well, you'll never be done with taking care of your body and enjoying delicious things with Orgain. I love them here. You'll love them there. I don't know what's going on over in Kentucky, but Orgain.com/ actually, I don't have it in front of me. What is it?
It's Jim. It's Jim.
/Jim.
What is my name? How long have you known me?
We've had other codes in the past, but /Orgain.com/Jim. It's delicious with that promo code Jim.
It's even better with that promo code sprinkled on top.
Well, Jimmy, baby, are you ready to talk about showbiz? Are you ready to talk about a big, glitzy, glamorous night? Smackdown on the USA Network. A big episode. Seemed like it was never going to end. And there's one thing everyone's talking about from the episode. I don't know how much other stuff you watched, but one of the more fascinating segments in a while. It took a while, but watching it live, it was watching a train just about to fall off the tracks, but it never exactly goes. Let's talk about SmackDown.
Well, this was kind of like your introduction, a long and rambling segment in a long and rambling show. It was February 21st, and it's a 3-hour show. It's become what Raw used to be before Raw had to get good because it went to Netflix, and now we've flip-flopped. We used to get 2 hours of kind of exciting SmackDown and 3 hours of a long-ass Raw, and now we get 2.5 hours of an exciting Raw and a 3-hour long-ass SmackDown. And they were in New Orleans, and they had breaking news, and we'll lead with this, and then we will go back and just talk maybe a minute about the Bloodline issues, because otherwise there's no... it's not like there's anything that's shaking the earth in the way of news from this program. But otherwise, the news of this program was they had released earlier in the day, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, is going to be here tonight, or is going to be at SmackDown tonight. However it was phrased, they put the word out. And so they've announced this at the top of the program. And then, later, I think finally Rock pulled up in his truck. Like, haven't we established he lives in Miami or whatever? Does he just drive this truck like a nomad from place to place? It would establish, there's Rock's truck.
Forget about that. Did you see him speed around the corner? No left or right turn indicator.
No, complete disregard for the traffic laws of the city and municipality. But then finally at 9:45, so they milked it till an hour and 45 in. And I think Rock might figure the third hour, the second coming, with cartoons and of travelogue couldn't save this fucking thing. So 9:45, the place goes dark, and then if you smell, and there's a big fucking pop. Because it's The Rock, he's going to get one. And then, have they changed his music again? It was rappy of some description in there, but at the same time, there's elements of the ba-boom boom. Well,
they changed it up, but even like at his peak, they were doing that where they would keep the intro and then kind of modify everything else. Also, I don't know how much he's super over, or at least when he first came out, and he gets a big pop. And I think some of the pop is built into the music, the way they do with Ospreay and Omega and other people. Well, at least Osprey. I don't know about Omega, at least Osprey.
They sweetened the pop. But he's going to get a pop because it's The Rock and he hadn't had time to piss these people off personally yet. A second. So it's by the time that the music and the entrance and he milks, it's 5 minutes and everybody's up to say because it's The Rock. They just found out they were getting this today. And then he gets on a microphone and he gets bleeped in the first 30 seconds. I'm not sure what all he was saying because he speaks quickly for a novice lip reader such as myself, but he gets a pop live in the audience for saying something. He gets bleeped on network television, which it works every once in a while. But remember when he did it in NXT, it was just...
He does it every time now.
Over and over.
It's his way for a cheap pop. I mean, based on the way this whole promo went, you would have to watch this and think, this is a guy that has all the skills or has had them in the past, and there's something completely off right now, a disconnect. And I think that is a crutch. It's a cheap pop. I'll come in there and immediately curse because I'm not supposed to. And it works. And it works.
I think also this is like a guy who has all the tools or skills, as you said, however it was, and also has Tourette's syndrome because he's saying everything at the same time. He's saying shit for people to cheer for him. He's saying shit for people to boo him. Are we supposed to? That's part of the problem here we'll get into. Are we supposed to like him? Are we supposed to hate him? What the fuck is it? There's a difference between... Remember, we're always talking about, oh, it's so great. We're guessing about, is it going to be this match or that match or who's going to win this thing? That's great. Keeping them guessing is great. Confusing them is not the same thing and is not great. He announced that WrestleMania is coming back to New Orleans, which got the expected big pop from people that came to see this show to begin with. And they're at the Superdome April 11th and 12th of 2026. And then the fans start saying, holy shit. Well, whoever Mr. Audio at the network is, the censor guy, is trying to mute shit out of holy shit. So it's just in and out sound. And then Rock says something, it gets bleeped again where they just completely mute whatever he fucking said. And then he started singing When the Saints Go Marching In. I mean, it's like coming to fucking Louisville and singing My Old Kentucky Home. But then he starts healing on the crowd and telling them to let him sing and calls them STD having trailer park trash. And he gets booed, and I wrote, what is happening? But the thing is, he's not even saying that. I can't believe I'm saying this. In an affectionate, joshing way, he's instantly going back to the heel Rock. But is he think he was going to get heat for getting cheered because he's a glory hound and had to be the one to come out and announce that WrestleMania is coming to New Orleans? And then he can call them fucking syphilis-ridden perverts? Or what's happening here, Brian, before we even get to his cohort in this?
Before I got to the part of this, before we get there where I thought he wanted to fuck Cody, my first thought was, I think The Rock may be drunk. And I'm not joking. If anyone thinks I'm just out here joking, my first thought was, I think The Rock may have enjoyed some spirits tonight, but I don't know. The whole thing was bizarre. He went from babyface to heel to babyface to heel to I'm an executive to whatever. I'm one of the people. Cody, once again, I know that The Rock apparently said that him and Cody have this great chemistry together. You don't really see any kind of chemistry. You see a confused wrestler. I don't know what this was.
I see the warmth between Cody and The Rock of formaldehyde.
It's no chemistry at all.
It's like peanut butter and fucking sardines. But so The Rock, being he, too many pronouns, pal, calls out a man that he respects and admires, our WWE champion, Cody Rhodes. And Cody gets the entrance. And now remember, we started at 9:45 Eastern. Cody gets the entrance. And Cody comes in the ring and they hug each other and they smile at each other, and The Rock kisses Cody on the cheek. Was that where the part where you thought that Rock was going to fuck Cody?
No, it was the whole just talking to him like he was Puff Daddy.
You didn't mean sexually.
No, I did mean sexually. It was just the whole tone of like talking to him like Puff Daddy trying to recruit a rapper. It was that whole fucking vibe.
Do you think that Rock has been to any of Diddy Daddy's parties?
Who knows? I'm sure we will find out. I'm sure a lot of people.
Well, how would he know the verbiage for the pitch of being pitched to be one of the Diddy Daddies?
I'm not exactly sure, but again, there's still so much more to go with this, but this is another appearance by The Rock, coming off that NXT one that went nowhere, and the one before that, and the appearance at the pay-per-view, at the end of the pay-per-view with War Games, where he just came out for no reason and then disappeared. There's a weird thing going on with him where he's just kind of doing his own thing. And the other thing is, none of his stuff that him and Gewurz or him and himself come up with, none of it's really working beyond the star power of him being The Rock of years old. Everything he seems to be trying to do isn't working. And then he started repeating himself.
Well,
and that was the point where you're like, what did he have in his mind? Because maybe he needs to start writing down the promos on his hand again. I really don't know.
Well, he was lost. It was like he was workshopping, to use a term I've heard before. Some of that was like he was workshopping the shit instead of actually doing it on TV, because he went back and reiterated so many points, sometimes in the same verbiage, sometimes he would change it up a little bit, but it was rambling. But that's the point. By the time they hugged and kissed, it was 10 o'clock. So 15 minutes for WrestleMania's coming to your town. I'm going to sing and y'all have syphilis. And then The Rock pitches how he and Cody have become such good friends after WrestleMania last year. And he showered praise on him at the Netflix debut. And he said Cody's a great champion. And they showed a picture of their mothers together, smiling in happier times. They're friends, but Cody needs to understand that The Rock is on the TKO board. And then at one point, Ari Emanuel owns the WWE, but Ari tells The Rock that he's the most powerful guy in the WWE. But he's in with all of the, it's kind of around and about. But The Rock pitches that he wants Cody to be more than our champion. He wants Cody, in Rock's words, to be my champion. And of course, then people are like, so they don't trust this. And Cody's confused. You're champion. I'm their champion. Points to the fan. And yeah, now they're chanting Cody, Cody.
Should they have said he's the people's champion? I mean, that's kind of what it was all, The Rock is supposed to be about the people, and now all of a sudden he's doing this thing.
Well, but then remember, he had to reiterate later on, and I'm the people's champion, and blah, 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 and kind of slid it in there. But I don't know if Cody, came up with this whole thing and he twisted everybody's arm to do it, then I apologize to Cody for shitting on this segment. But the only thing that Cody could say to make the point that they're trying to make here, vague though it may be, is that Cody would say, I'm not your champion or the company's champion. I'm their champion. That's a logical thing to say. And then I also got him chanting Cody's name because the fans like that, because The Rock is rapidly getting under their fucking bonnet here. And again, Rock's always going to have fans, and there's so many people just with the movies that don't even know what was going on with the wrestling. But for this again, you're going to see a backlash from the audience that buys tickets, makes the effort to see it live, especially on pay-per-views, that type of thing. Now is going to start getting the sour belches in larger numbers when The Rock shows up, because he's going to get in the way of something that they've been invested in and confuse the fucking issue. But I digress. The Rock knows that I'm trying to jot down the reasoning. What is this story? And he said, Cody's goal is to bring happiness to people around the world. And he's got millions of followers on Instagram. Well, Rock has 500 million. Do 500 million people follow him on something, whatever the fuck the Instagram is?
I think he said
legitimately.
I don't know about legitimately. I'm sure there's a ton of people across the world, but I'm also sure that that number has to be padded.
Well, however that works. But anyway, the Rock gives him the big pitch. He wants Cody to be his champion so he can open the doors for him. Every dream will come true. Hollywood. He'll be in the show business, Brian. They'll be calling him Sweetie and Daddy and Mama and brother and sister. And
oh, yeah. Maybe him and his wife could ruin Cody's career like they ruined the guy who played Superman's career.
Oh, who was that? They must have ruined him. I never heard of him.
Henry something. I forget what his last name was.
Oh, good old Henry. So The Rock gives the big pitch, right? If you're my champion. And Rock said, one thing I've never had is a brother.
Now, hold on.
There are a couple of...
There's like a half dozen siblings out there that he doesn't acknowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean... he might not have had someone that he felt was a brother, but they've had enough siblings that he'd have a brother by geneticism.
He always wanted a brother, just not one actually related to him. Just not one that was actually that had the same dad as him. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, and that's what Cody can be, a brother from another mother. And, then he goes into the story. Last year, my goal was to face my cousin Roman Reigns for the title. It was what was best for business. The biggest match ever. And what did you do? Well, we'll never know, ladies and gentlemen, because then The Rock said, you audio mute. And people react, but it was completely blanked out. And he said, you stood up to me and you slapped me, and nobody gets away with that. And that's why you should be my champion. What the fuck is happening here? And then a repeat about Cody's dreams coming true. And then he says, don't give me an answer tonight. Think about it. I'm like, for more time? I'll meet you in Toronto at the Elimination Chamber for your answer. Answer of what? He's the world champion. They're fighting in the Elimination Chamber to see who gets a shot at him. And it's already obviously, or gets a shot at some title or whatever the fuck is going on. He's in the fucking mix. If he just pledges allegiance to The Rock, he can meet the Hollywood agents. What is the big pitch to go to the dark side here?
Yeah, I don't know.
But anyway, then The Rock turns around and he thanks the crowd. Yeah, you've been a great audience. You've been a great disease-ridden, syphilis-faced audience. And I really appreciate it. And then he looks and says to Cody, says, what I want more than anything is that. And he points at the belt. You think he's pointing at Cody there with the belt over his shoulder. And Cody says, you want my championship? No, I don't want your belt. I want your soul. And the crowd mildly booed. Rabble. And Cody has to look confused, which everybody else actually kind of has to also. And The Rock said, see you in Toronto. And he walked out to mild booing again, but he stopped dramatically twice in the aisleway to look back over his shoulder at the distraughtness and dumbfoundery that was on Cody's face, and scene. 28 minutes for that fucking segment.
And I turned off the show after that. I didn't realize till the next day there was still more to go. That went so long and it went past 10 o'clock. I forgot it was a 3-hour show.
Hey, you couldn't wait to get out of there.
That was
You didn't realize they were coming back on stage for an encore.
I got killed a few years back when I said The Rock can't do good promos anymore. How could you say that? He's The Rock. I got killed when I said The Rock's instincts suck. Oh my God, did I get killed for that? I stand by everything I have said. In fact, I expand upon it. And I think everyone else sees it too. This is embarrassing shit. And I said it before and I'll say it again. They've got a Rock problem. And the Rock problem is Ari Emanuel doesn't know wrestling. Ari Emanuel knows Dwayne Johnson. And he knows Nick Khan. So if WWE Smackdown, written by now Brian James as the head writer, the Road Dogg, under Paul Levesque, if all of a sudden they get told days out, 2 days out, whatever it is, The Rock's coming, he wants to do something, you have to change everything. This is like having Vince there again. All of a sudden you have a chaotic agent who, not to say The Rock isn't a big star, not to say if there was a chance to build him up for something in Mania, they should. They shouldn't, I mean. Not to say they shouldn't, they should. However, if it's just him showing up at random times to be jammed in to the show, to act like some heel authority figure from another time, that ain't gonna work. And I said it when he showed up in NXT and said nothing. If he keeps showing up and either saying nothing or just being so bizarre
or saying too much,
it's gonna start killing any buzz he has around. Not buzz. It's gonna start killing the idea around wrestling that you have to see the things that he's doing for the right reasons.
Well, I mean, he meandered badly in NXT like he had absolutely nothing prepared. And I think he even said that, and I believe him. In this case, was this over-prepared? He was trying to sell this story, and in some way
he was trying to remember everything he memorized. He was trying to remember everything him and Gilbert's memorized, and that's the problem. There's no instincts. There's no letting things breathe or feel natural. Everything with Dwayne Johnson in front of the camera, even if it's not a movie or a TV show, it's all performance. He doesn't know how to be real. And because of that, in this day and age, that starts bleeding into these promos where, again, it's so unreal that you could tell there's almost like a problem with the guy. But go ahead.
But how can it be inconsistent if it's so carefully fucking written? How can it be so inconsistent? Every time he shows up, is he gonna kiss somebody, or is he gonna fucking whip him with a weight belt? Is he? He has been alternately fucking playing up to the audience and calling them, sexual deviants with diseases. He's kissing Cody on the face, but he wants to own his soul. But last year, this whole thing started with him kicking a shit out of him, and they never really made up. We just saw him, Rock, come back and start kissing him.
Well, no, they said that was another thing. After the match last year, you and I got together, drank some of my tequilas, and needed a cheap free plug. So when did that happen? You guys hated each other last year. You were drinking tequila after the match? Even if you were, why are you saying that here? A lot of these guys can't. I mean, again, this is the same show that in the middle of a wrestling show is showing you clips from this training show that gets 150,000 viewers on A&E, exposing the business. So it's not like that's a big deal to them. But The Rock can't keep things straight. He wants to be too much at once. He can't just be a heel character.
Well, that's the point I'm making, is this, and that's what's happening here, is they're confusing people and numbing them to what's going on because we can't keep track of it. It's not like the smart fans are upset because it doesn't make sense and because they don't want The Rock getting in the way of the things that they're really wanting to see amongst all the people they've been watching regularly all year, right? Blah, blah, blah. But also, the average person, if they keep doing this, is going to start saying, oh, there's The Rock, but wait, I thought they were mad, or I thought they were hugging each other, or what? It just breeds familiarity, and that breeds blasé. I don't care. I don't care. If I'm not successful, it won't be distressful because I don't care. He's still going to be on the board, so he don't care. But for his ego's sake, I don't know what the fuck they're doing.
That's the thing.
But
I say there's a
it's
Rock
just
problem.
back and forth.
There's a Rock problem. At some point, if this continues down the road, it won't be now, but there will be a conversation where Nick Khan and maybe even Paul Levesque have to go sit down with Ari Emanuel and say, this guy can't just show up and do whatever the fuck he wants, especially if it's not working. And this didn't work. People were interested in it for all the wrong reasons. Nobody came at it. I shouldn't say that. There are people trying to defend it, saying, oh, you got to let it play out. You got to see where it goes. I mean, it's the same argument as a lot of the AEW crap. No, this was a bad promo that went nowhere and confused people. People want to see where it goes for the wrong reasons. They want to see how they're going to fix this. They don't want to see anything else.
Well, also, if they want to see where it goes, it doesn't matter where it's going if this just keeps stopping and starting and changing in the middle of what they've already seen. And instead of being consistent with everything that everybody's been doing over the past several months when their business has been on fire. And suddenly, out of a helicopter, as Jim Herd would say, they drop The Rock. And yes, he's the biggest star in the world. And I said, for a lot of people, you can just get out there and bend over and fart into the microphone. It'd be fine and dandy with him. But, you know, it's fucking shit up. And remember, we talk a few weeks ago, they don't need The Rock at WrestleMania this year, or they didn't. Maybe they're not even getting him now. We don't know what the fuck. He just comes in now and confuses the issue and muddies the water at the top level, the top program, right at WrestleMania time again. And this time is later than it was last year. So do they have as much time to course correct if there's backlash and forelash and all kinds of different lashes?
Well, Jim, before we completely move on from this, I have to bring up to you the press conference because a lot of other people were talking about it. It's a long press conference after SmackDown. It was about a half hour, a little less than a half hour, and it's pretty much all The Rock.
You know, the Rock should go to AEW because he and Tony both love these long-winded press conferences where they get to talk more about the talking they've just done.
Well, let's listen to this and judge this versus a Tony press conference. We know how Tony does it. We've listened to dozens of them at this point.
I bet this one will be a little smoother, just verbally.
Let's see who's more full of shit, who's smoother, who do you believe, who do you trust here? Here's a question for The Rock. Apparently this is about the whole Cody thing.
It's been good.
Right after this.
Rico Andre with WBOK Radio. So tonight you had a big proposal for Cody Rhodes. What does this mean for you and him as past rivals and our respective peers?
With Cody, I love that. I got to tell you, for those of you guys who don't know, I grew up in the world of pro wrestling. My dad, my grandfather, and to be able to come back in this way as the final boss and to be able to get in the final boss's skin and be able to become that in this venue here in New Orleans, and really I think take the audience on a fun experience and ride where I'm singing, I'm dropping the announcement of WrestleMania, here we come 2026, I'm singing, oh, when the Saints go marching in, then I'm telling you, you can't sing with me. The final boss will finish singing, and then bring Cody Rhodes out and offer him this big ideology of, you are our champion and you're amazing, but I want so much more for you. And at the end, the final boss says, I want your soul. And I think what that does in this wild, crazy world of pro wrestling is that...
Let me stop it for just one brief moment.
Yeah, I'm stunned. Yes, I was trying to figure out if he was ever going to come to any kind of point.
Well, there's a little more here, but this is Jericho disease, isn't it?
Well, but also it's just he really is in love with the smell of his own brand. He doesn't realize that he's coming in, and for the most dedicated followers of this brand, he's disrupting all the shit that they think that they're getting and that they want to get and they want to see. He's inserting himself in everything, but at the same time, if he wants to be a heel, he wants to be a heel and a baby face, and he wants to be a obnoxious heel, and then he wants to immediately turn babyface to tell you how good he is at doing that. And it's smarmy at this point, and it's just, please get over yourself. And you're not taking me on a goddamn thrill ride like I'm at Disney. You're confusing the issue at this point. You're wedging you're a third wheel here. I thought this was the guy that said he didn't do WrestleMania a year or two ago because they couldn't come up with something, a long-term plan that was different, that had been done before and was captivating and wow. Well, now is he just coming up with ideas and flying into the fucking town?
He's gone to too many movie pitches. That's what it is. He's trying to pitch everyone on all this happening, but he's the genius behind it because he understands it deep, deep inside his mind. Let's go back to The Rock.
To me, it just becomes something that's unpredictable. Because in the world of pro wrestling, as we all know, like everything will culminate to a match. Like whatever happens, it will end up in the ring. What I really love about this rare air space that we've gotten to with the character of the final boss is like this white whale unicorn in that with final boss and Cody Rhodes.
Hold on.
It's not about...
Now, wait, just hold the phone here a second. First of all, the character of the final boss, he's goddamn James Lipton here inside the actor's studio, but also a white whale unicorn. Is that even a god? Did he just make that up? Has anybody ever said that before?
There are white whales and there are unicorns. He just combined them both to make it ultra rare.
Well, it's about as rare as hen's teeth.
Let's go
That's
back to
what Uncle Harold would have said.
Let's go back to the white whale unicorn himself, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Sounds like a fucking song.
What I really love about this rare air space that we've gotten to with the character of the final boss is like this white whale unicorn in that with final boss and Cody Rhodes, it's not about the WWE title. It's not about having a match. It's not about punching or kicking or bleeding or any of that is so part of our world. It never has to culminate to a match. That's a really special place to be, I think, like creatively, and when you just think character-wise and how much fun you could have. I grew up in the business, so and as did Cody. His dad and my dad were friends. They're no longer with us. But I think to be able to have a storyline and two characters who are very popular, to never have to get in the ring for a match, but yet still hold this really unique, compelling, like off-putting, and it's kind of weird, and he wants his soul. What does that mean? I love it. I loved every moment of it, and Cody did too as well.
If you can stop it for a breath.
Yeah, let's stop it there. And again,
he's all around this thing about how praiseworthy this whole story is, while telling people that it's a gaga story. And if they don't have to have a match, then what would Cody for some reason sell his soul and turn his back on his fans for The Rock? I doubt it very highly, but if he was some way put under the yoke of oppression of The Rock, then wouldn't he, by tradition in wrestling, have to at least beat the guy up one time to get out from under it? Or when he throws off the shackles of slavery of The Rock and stands up for himself, does The Rock just say, "Oh, okay, my bad," and go make a movie? And Cody's standing there with his dick in his hand? What? Where's the comeuppance here? As Larry Latham, Spot the Moondog, would say, where's the heat?
And again, The Rock at this press conference is almost talking down to the world because, he's trying to explain the genius behind this. And in case anyone didn't know, he's from a wrestling family. Who the fuck didn't know that? In case you didn't know, my dad and granddad were wrestlers. Who doesn't know that?
They literally just had a fucking network television show about it. But then it didn't get renewed, so maybe there's still a lot of people that didn't get the word.
The pomposity and the arrogance and the out-of-touchedness of The Rock is going to catch up very, very soon if he stays around for too long. And this shit better make sense. They're in Toronto. That'll be a harsh crowd if this doesn't make sense a little bit better. They can't end the segment with Cody looking confused in the ring. Cody's just standing there in the ring. He looks awful throughout this whole thing. Like, there's nothing that makes him look better. It somehow took him and the title down a notch and went nowhere in the process. And again, right after it's over, he wants to sit down and talk about, hey, Cody was happy too, and I was happy. And what the fuck? How does that help anything?
Yeah, because I know that since I am on the board of directors and I do know the owner and jet around with him or whatever the fuck, I know Cody would have said, boy, this fucking sucks. You need to get the fuck out of here if he really meant that. But he enjoyed it.
You know what the problem is? These scrums are more for the people doing them than for the actual media.
The scrummers instead of the scrummies. I feel sorry for the scrummies. They got to listen to the scrummers.
So that was a scrummy press conference from The Rock. And we'll see where we go from here. What is your gut telling you? Are you optimistic about where we're going to go from now to Mania with The Rock? Or do you think based on the last few appearances, Netflix, NXT, and this, and before Netflix, it was that pay-per-view Survivor Series where it just showed up at the end and was never explained or referenced again.
No, that was Bad Blood, wasn't it? Because it was in Atlanta.
Oh, was it? I thought it was the War Games.
I think. Oh, goddamn. Well, I can't remember because
maybe you're right. No, you're right. Because War Games was CM Punk was on the team, not Cody. You're right.
Yeah. Get used to saying that now that I'm a fucking Hollywood superstar. But point being, I don't think we're getting Rock wrestling at WrestleMania. I think he's just confusing the issue somehow. I mean, he might have a plan for this to go forward, or maybe he just wanted to go to New Orleans. But I think we would already. One would think that you would have already announced or had in the works far enough that it would be known if The Rock was actually wrestling, because he has to get in the physical shape. He can't just do that at that level once a year. At least that's been his track record of getting in shape and, being serious about that part of it. So, but that's why I'm wondering, does he take someone else's side? Is he playing someone else against Cody at the next step? Or does he just go home till the next big show? I don't fucking know.
Well, it's the confusion like this that makes the road to WrestleMania so
confusing?
Confusing every year. More about this when more actually happens, when anything's explained. Whatever it may be here. But Jim, on that topic, the big news that broke concerning AEW, have you been following?
Well, wait a minute. Hold on here a second. I wanted to go back here a second and just make mention.
Oh, I forgot it wasn't over. It was over for me. I forgot.
That we only talked about the 128-minute segment or whatever, but there was also on SmackDown, there's tension. Remember, we took a break about a week and a half where I didn't watch the wrestling. But there's tension between Solo and Jacob Fatu now. And there's being pointed words exchanged, and Fatu and Solo were the tag team that were in the main event against the baby faces who were, did I write this down? Where are the notes of this? Priest and Strongman. And basically, that's the thing is Jacob Fatu. Remember when I was saying when they first introduced Solo as the enforcer, the street champion, whatever was going on there, I said it's a great idea for a gimmick and a great spot, in the Bloodline. It's different, but it ain't. Solo's too clean. Boy, they need that Jacob Fatu. I believe you'll recall me saying that, even though I'm not a person to talk about the various times that I'm always right.
I would venture to guess that there's a large audience of wrestling fans that learned of the name Jacob Fatu from you.
Well, now they are learning from Jacob, so I guess the thing is now there's some tension between the two of them as to who's calling the plays, and you get the idea that Tommy Tonga will probably go with the winner. And then they had the main event where, to be honest, it proved that Brown Strongman isn't very good. Damian Priest style badly clashes with Solo.
Finally, we have proof. We've been looking for proof. That's what we've been missing.
And Fatu has overshadowed Solo in the ring. He's been working longer and he's better at it. And he's wilder and more unpredictable. Solo is still a little green and has but it wasn't a real good match. But finally, you've got Solo milking the fucking spike. Jacob did a double team where he snapped Priest's neck on the rope and into Solo's rock bottom. He got a 2 count. And then Solo was milking the spike, but Priest stopped him. So they got in position where Jacob was coming with a kick and Priest moved and Jacob kicked Solo and knocked the fuck out of him. And then Priest chucked Solo and Brown took him out over the railing or the desk or whatever. Or top roped Fatu, I'm sorry. And they were out on the floor and Priest choke slammed Solo 1, 2, 3. And they just got it in. My DVR froze. I don't know if anything else happened. But now I'm wondering, it's going to be hard for Solo to be in the group but be subservient. But at the same time, Jacob is a natural baby face because of his charisma and the way he impresses people with the shit that he does and his element of danger. They don't get to see that much these days. But this is the intriguing kind of shit where you don't know where it's going to go and you're guessing. Not like, well, I'm fucking confused because they're telling this story, reasonably and logically. But otherwise, it was kind of boring. I'm sorry.
I didn't see it, obviously, but what would you do if you have everything going on right now? Is it too early to turn Jacob Fatu babyface? And otherwise, do you just reunite the heels with some kind of central cause? Whatever it may be?
I think it is too early to turn Jake because there's so many matches that they can get money out of with him on the heel side right now. If I had to do anything for the sake of long-term business, I might reunite Solo with Roman. Because they got another Samoan coming back. He broke his fucking toe, right?
Oh, that's right, but he's not even Samoan. He's Tongan.
Well, but you know what I'm saying? In this Bloodline cast of characters, the Fatu, Solo, and the two Tongas were originally together. So even if Solo, for long-term business, I might reunite Solo with Roman and make Jacob the leader of the Rogue Band because they still have a couple that they've signed that you haven't seen, including a giant. Well, I'm just telling you.
They're hiding a giant down in developmental.
They're hiding a giant in Atlanta. You've got the shelves are stocked with all kinds of surprise Samoans they could bring out. So this is a good little palace intrigue here with what's going on. But I'm just, again, if you now, everybody's liking Jacob and Jacob's getting over, but this is what I was talking about. So you can see it visually now without having to go too far or research this shit on the internet. A guy that comes in that has that wild, unpredictable look that you can kind of lose yourself in the disbelief of, this guy might not give a fuck enough not to go into business for himself and do some stupid shit. And his athleticism is off the charts and his shit looks good. And it is that, Jimmy Snuka-ish, even when he was a heel, people were starting to get with him and get behind him because he was just awesome. And it wasn't like his promos were strong enough to influence him either way. That Jacob can talk also. And he could be just as big of a wrecking ball as a babyface with a valid reason as he is now as a heel. But I'd wait a year and a half and get a bunch of matches that you can get now while it's fresh, and then turn him when he needs a little paint up. But that's what I'm talking. The level of aggression that he shows, and you can tell he wants it and he's into it. That's what I was talking about, coming in, making an impression. If he was nervous, he didn't show it.
Well,
but it's your show.
We shall see what happens and show it or tell you about it.
Oh, and here's an update on something we talked about. Remember, Ludwig Borga gets his own episode of Dark Side of the Ring this season, the incomparable Tony Halm. And I said, I couldn't remember, but he had a tattoo that had to be covered up by his ring gear in some fashion because it wouldn't fly on television even in 1995 or whatever that was, 4. And it was I don't even know what you call this, but an eagle with its wings spread with the SS lightning bolts.
Oh, that's nice.
In the middle of a circle around yeah. So that was forwarded to us on Twitter per our discussion, but that was what they had to wrap up on him. And from this picture that I see, I can't tell what limb this is, but I believe it may have been a leg. Or possibly a breast, a thigh, a wing. Not sure what part.
On the topic of follow-ups, we had a question the other day on the drive-thru about the Milwaukee Midget, Charles Fisher. Turns out he was a wrestler. He wasn't even a midget wrestler. He was just a shorter wrestler. And I got to read up more. And as a biography of him, I just got it, so I haven't had a chance to look through it. Apparently, he lays claim to have invented the pile driver. But we'll have more about this in the future.
Oh, good Lord. But he wasn't a midget. He was just a short man.
He was just a short man. They called him the midget.
You know what? I told you that story Bobby Fulton told me, didn't I?
Which one?
About when he runs shows, wrestling events, and has for years, and he booked on one of his matches, he booked this midget that he knew, midget wrestler, to have a midget match. And he said, can you get somebody to work with? Oh, yeah. So he's expecting them to show up. And then all of a sudden, they said, Bobby wasn't in the locker room. He was in the box office or whatever. Somebody else was in the locker room. This little old man, he was like 5'2" and he was in his 50s or whatever, carried a bag, tried to come in the locker room. They said, who are you? So I'm one of the wrestlers. Well, who the fuck are you? We don't know you. I'm wrestling with so-and-so, whatever the other midget's name was. And they went and got Bobby. He came in there. He said, look at you. You're not a midget. He said, but I'm not that tall. And the midget couldn't find another midget. So he got the shortest regular sized fella that he knew to come and he was going to put a mask on him so they couldn't tell he was fucking 50 years old or whatever. But Bobby was like, God damn it. You told me you were going to bring another midget. You didn't tell me you were going to bring a little old man.
When I first started watching AAA, like in 93, 94, I guess 93, I started watching. Rey Mysterio was such a standout. He was like 5'2". There was another mini Jerrito Estrada, the mini version of Jerry Estrada.
Yes.
He was like 5'4". He was bigger than Rey, but Rey wasn't in the mini division. All these other guys were in the mini division. He was almost as big as Jerry Estrada, Jerrito Estrada.
They either needed, the minis either needed one like mini Vader that was so bulbously large around or taller than most as the catcher of the pair in that type of situation.
Well, Jim, one more follow-up before we move on. A friend of ours, a friend of the show, we've had him on the show in the past, Scott Teal, Crowbar Press, a brand new book just came out, Raising Kane, if you like wrestling history, Raising Kane from the Inferno to the Great Mephisto by Frankie Kane and Scott Teal. The, I guess, part 2 of his autobiography/biography/interview. It's fascinating stuff with the Great Mephisto. Just came out.
Well, yes, I've seen it. As a matter of fact, Scott sent me an advance copy. The first volume was Frankie Kane had a fascinating life and career, and because he started really young as a teenager, involved in this world of boxing and wrestling and carnivals and everything. I mean, he knew Jack Pfeffer, but at the same time, he was still working on top and as a booker in the early 80s and was on, Georgia Wrestling on TBS. So, a variety of eras. The first volume was from when he was just a kid and boxed in, I think he's from Columbus, Ohio, and through breaking in as a pro. And this kind of carries it from, as they say, the Inferno to Mephisto, because Frankie Kane was one of the original Masked Inferno tag teams. They were ripped off in the 70s, but in the 60s, they were the original. He and Rocky Smith were the originals, and he pioneered the gimmick, the loaded boot. And he was one of the first people before the Sheik that threw fire. Of course, Saul Weingroff had been doing it with the Kane gimmick with the Germans and etc. But a lot of the territory wrestling, cliches that you might see, a lot of them originated with him. He was a great booking mind. He just, I think from reading this book, I think unfortunately he thinks he's a little greater than he was, which probably led to some of the promoters not wanting to suffer. They wanted some ideas, but they probably didn't want to have to deal with him full time. He was booking Mississippi for the Culkins when they were on the outs with
Right.
with Watts.
That's
and
when Michael Hayes, Terry Gordy, Percy Pringle.
Yeah.
And
he, had a big run as the Great Mephisto in Florida with Eddie Graham. And he became a manager later on after injuries and etc. But anyway, it's an interview that Scott does. It's transcribed, but he sits down and goes in chronological order. Scott does great research. And I will say there's definitely some wrestlers embellishment, as there is with any time you ever talk to a fucking wrestler. But just everything that he says is rooted in reality, because Scott has found the newspaper clippings or the program articles or the ads or whatever that, prove that he was there at these things when they happened in the way that he remembers them. So it's a great book. Anyway, if anybody likes old time 60s and 70s and 80s wrestling territory history.
That's right, and a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, as well as other books from Crowbar Press. Check it out, crowbarpress.com, Scott Teal. And, of course, maybe you want to start a business, and maybe you want to sell some business to someone out there. You need to get your own storefront going on the World Wide Web. Jim, I know that you have someone you could tell all the people about.
Well, because you're talking about too much monkey business. If you want to give up the monkey business, the rat race, the pressure cooker that is the outside world today, ladies and gentlemen. Let's say you want to strike off on your own. You want to blaze your own trail. You want to go on your own path. You want to trod your own soil. You want to get down on your knees and crawl till you get to where you're going. Well, you need somebody to help pick you up and dust you off and say, we'll help you out. And that's our friends at Shopify. Boy, I'll tell you what, they can run a business. Not only do they have the #1 checkout on the planet because nobody does selling better than Shopify, but this is a platform that you can yodel it. You can yodel out into the Alps on a platform like this where you can broadcast your goods and services to the world. And I'll tell you what, whether you're selling widgets or wingdings, they can set you up from concept to execution. And believe me, you'll get a last meal right before you're executed. And way less carts will go right before the execution.
There's no, again, too far, there's no execution.
Well, from concept to execution, you're going to be excited about the execution.
You'll be executing
sales.
Excellent. There'll be sales being executed by you with Shopify.
And that's the good part about it. They will execute all the sales. And if the salesmen aren't earning up to their potential, they'll take care of executing them too. You don't have to get your hands dirty because now you have as partners Shopify who are going to do all the dirty work for you.
Keep your hands clean, metaphorically.
Yes, well, keep your hands clean and your hands to yourself. But meanwhile, Shopify is going to be in the dark corners where you need them to be, and they're going to be making sure some people go away that are in your way. They'll get people out of your way, and then you'll corner the market on those widgets and wingdings. And then the people will be forced to give you money as tribute. They'll be bringing you buckets of money and currency and goods and corn on the cob and snap peas, plenty of snap peas. They're going to be bringing you tributes. Their firstborn child, maybe the second. If the firstborn is a boy, they may want to keep that one.
Listen, no one's bringing you any kids. No one's bringing you any of these things. The only thing that is happening metaphorically or at least virtually is people are bringing you sales. Those people being Shopify, those sales being yours. Money in your pocket, Shopify there for you. Tell them, Jim.
Money in your pocket and shoes for your feet and pockets for your stuff.
Now, that's someone else's tag. Are they in business still? I don't even know. I don't know if we could use
the ruse, tennis shoe people. I don't know. Can you hear my sound effect on our new apparatus? Did you hear that?
Unfortunately.
Well, that's what you're going to hear every time Shopify gets involved here. It's going to be nothing but money, money, money. Money makes the world go round, and Shopify will make your head spin with how quick they will make you independently wealthy. And right now, you can upgrade your business and get the same quality checkout that all the big boys on the interwebs use. It's a powerful engine ready to be revved up and run over people at your disposal. A $1 a month trial period is what you're going to get. If you go to shopify.com/JCE, that's all lowercase. I've mentioned this before. Shopify.com/JCE to upgrade your selling today with a $1 a month free trial. Well, not a free trial. It's $1 a month. It's almost free. They're almost begging you to take this valuable service. That's how they hook you. And then you'll never get the Shopify off your back. $1 a month trial period, Shopify.com/JCE.
That's right. Shopify, friends of ours. They can be friends of yours. Check them out today. But Jim,
well, now, I don't know if I would go around promising their friendship, but they'll do business with you.
On the topic of friendship, that has always been one of the central tenets of AEW. And unfortunately, this past week, one of the friends broke ranks. Ryan Nemeth, we've talked about him before in his issues that he talked about publicly with AEW, has reportedly, according to Fightful, filed a lawsuit against AEW, Tony Khan, CM Punk. Trying to see if there's anyone else here. The full complaint is not online, and I'm going to guess that's also no one's been served with this yet. It's just a
wait a minute. What about me and Home Depot and The Rock?
I don't know. He has not.
Did they name us?
He has not announced that he has teamed up with Raka Khan, although she may have helped write this. Again, we don't have everything. We only have what's been made public. Let me read you some of what's been reportedly made public from this complaint, Ryan Nemeth is a successful actor, comedian, and stuntman. That wasn't a joke. That was a statement of fact under penalty of perjury.
Oh, that may make it a little more touchy there. They filed that with the court.
Ryan Nemeth is a successful actor, comedian, and stuntman. Nemeth also followed his older brother Nick's career and has established himself as a star performer on the professional wrestling circuit. Nemeth was under contract with AEW. AEW is owned by Shad and Tony Khan. Shad Khan is the owner of the NFL franchise Jacksonville Jaguars. When his son Tony managed to alienate most everyone within the Jaguars organization, including star NFL players, Tony was moved to a leadership role in the Khan family-owned Fulham Football Club. Tony ended up mismanaging Fulham, leading to multiple lawsuits against the club. Since he was a child...
This is in the lawsuit complaint?
This is the opening paragraph. Since he was a child, Tony loved professional wrestling and had an obsession with certain wrestlers.
That sounds like the opening of a Halloween sequel.
The Khan family formed AEW to provide Tony with something to do, safely away from the father's other ventures. Tony serves as AEW's chief executive officer. Phil Brooks was another wrestler under contract with AEW and a member of the AEW management team. Let's stop there. That's the first time we've seen that. Officially,
well, and
that he was a
again,
part of it.
Well, but again, this is their. We've already seen how facts can be stretched like spandex on Oprah Winfrey's ass in other aspects of this thing by what we've just read. So it will probably come out if this goes anywhere. But are they claiming he was part of management because he was given the responsibility or by Tony verbally of overseeing Collision, or did he have some type of contract where it stipulated that he was an official part of management? That remains to be seen. We don't know that.
Well, let's see what it says here. Tony had a deep fascination with Brooks. Brooks undertook a campaign to terrorize and intimidate plaintiff, including physical assault. AEW and Tony Khan did nothing to protect Ryan Nemeth and other wrestling performers from despicable conduct on the part of Brooks. AEW turned a blind eye to Brooks' conduct because of Tony's deep admiration for Brooks and because he was their most popular wrestling performer. At Brooks and Tony's insistence, AEW and Tony Khan have undertaken an effort to blackball Nemeth so we can never again, it says so we can never again work in the wrestling business. So let's stop there. The accusation is that Tony Khan and Phil Brooks conspired together to blackball Ryan Nemeth, who I believe has been on Dynamite, is it 3 times, 4 times?
Well, but isn't he now, isn't he working for TNA, or I saw him doing something at some point recently for TNA, or am I just making that up?
He, I believe, was doing something with his brother in TNA, because his brother's been a star in TNA for a bit.
Okay, so his case here is, besides the fact that it's worded in such a ridiculous way and it's so ludicrous on the face of it, he was there before CM Punk came into AEW. He's been on and off there for a few years. And remember, at one point I said, I admire his self-promotion. He's trying, unlike a lot of the other goofy indie guys that would come in and try to have the Arena Mexico main event, with whoever. He knew he was being used as a job guy, and he was taking the bumps and doing the job, but still trying to get his personality noticed instead of doing a bunch of fucking moves. And he was all over Twitter and the social media with the Hollywood hunk, and he's trying to get a gimmick over. He was working hard at that. Kudos for the effort. And I think, honestly, the way this is written, instead of and with no facts behind it, instead of a serious document, it's a way to get attention, get himself over, and potentially have Tony, who has more money than he can fucking burn in the goddamn furnace, to just get him to go away because he's a distraction. But point being, the story is that he was a guy that was there forever, and they used him 5 times on TV, and he never won a match. And he was in a group of other job guys that maybe got to speak every great so often. And Punk comes in and works there for however long he was there, and nothing really changes. And then Punk tells him to take a fuck off out of Dodge in Greensboro or wherever it was, because Nemeth is a friend of the Lollipop Guild, the California Raisins. And since they had been so childish in this whole thing, that separate shows, separate crews had to be created for Saturday and Wednesday, that Punk told him to have Nemeth hit the bricks, because if his crew can't be on Wednesday, then their crew can't be on Saturday. And he's a fucking job guy. And
well, we have
then
details.
Punk has been, well, I was about to say, then Punk's been fired. So how the fuck, for the past year and a half or however long it's been, so how the fuck are Tony and Punk still conspiring to fuck with this guy's career when Tony fired his co-conspirator 2 years ago or a year and a half ago? And also, while we're at it, just to wind things up, it's completely ridiculous to think that he's blackballed in wrestling when he is currently working in TNA, which is, I guess, now technically the 3rd biggest promotion in the country, that has a deal with the WWE that's the biggest promotion in the world. So they did a horrible blackballing job. But I think that's all the points I had off top of my head.
Well, again, we don't have the entirety of the complaint, but let's go with what we have here. According to, I believe, Fightful's reporting, at all relevant times mentioned herein, Brooks was also an employee of AEW, serving a role in executive leadership. In early 2023, Brooks assaulted and battered 2 fellow wrestlers known by the stage names Matt and Nick Jackson. Brooks is known to have an uncontrollable temper and often lashes out in violent tirades against others. Thus, defendants were on notice regarding Brooks's violent proclivities. Let's stop there for a moment.
As a matter of fact, Dr. Loomis came in and told him, I spent the first 9 years trying to reach him, those black soulless eyes, and then I've spent the rest trying to keep him locked away.
Well, they even got a fact wrong, though. The fight wasn't early 2023. Wasn't it like September?
It was in the years are blurring now.
Forget about the year.
It was in September 2022.
Yeah.
Because then by the time that, because Punk was hurt, came back early springish, whatever, 2023, had the summer of Collision where it was the best wrestling show on television, then he was gone, and then so was that.
Besides the fact that it's now an illegal filing that the Bucks got their ass kicked, I would argue it says battered 2 fellow wrestlers, battered 2 company executives, not 2 fellow wrestlers. There's a big difference. They were executives who walked into that room. But anyway, let's continue. Rather than removing Brooks from the AEW roster of wrestlers, Tony Khan made the decision to merely suspend Brooks for a few months. Brooks is one of AEW's most popular wrestlers, and Khan did not feel that Brooks could be removed without a substantial loss in profit for AEW. Further, Khan has a very deep personal affinity for Brooks. Khan made the conscious decision.
They're lifelong, close, personal friends.
Khan made the conscious decision to keep Brooks as part of AEW, although he knew that Brooks is prone to lashing out in violent episodes and to injure others. He's prone to doing it.
Prone to doing it. He's made a habit of it. He ranks right up there with arthritis and polio as one of the 3 great cripplers. The list of men that this man has left in his wake, a trail of broken bones and busted eyes and blood spilled, tears shed. Oh, the humanity.
Beyond his deep feelings for Brooks. See, they put that in a fucking legal brief.
You know, this is some kind of shit that Mike Tenay would have to read with no inflection in his voice, written by Shitstain at a TNA production meeting.
Beyond his
deep affection for the man.
beyond his deep feelings for Brooks, Khan represented to AEW executives and wrestlers that the TBS network had produced the AEW Collision show contingent upon Brooks's involvement as the show's star. This was all the more reason for Khan to keep Brooks in spite of his violent propensities. There were violent proclivities before. At least they're changing it up now at each thing.
Yes.
Propensities and proclivities.
Wait a minute. I thought proclivities was that spot on the female sexual organ that most guys can't find.
No.
The proclivity.
Let's go back to this. During his suspension, for unknown reasons, Brooks made it known that he despised Nemeth. Nemeth did nothing to Brooks whatsoever, but Brooks made it well known that he was angry with Nemeth. Brooks has a notorious history for taking violent action against others for no reason.
Fucking Al Capone got better press than this. What is the entire... Have we come up with a number of people that Punk has punched? Is it
the Jacksons?
2 or 3?
Well, the Jacksons.
Well, that was... I guess, okay, that counts as 2, but it's in the same... It's one fight. He got a 2-fer that day. Is that like a 3-point shot in basketball?
I don't know who else got hit, just, getting in the way of a fight. That's what happens. People get hit.
Well, yeah, but, so there's 2. And then Jungle Jack off, he front face locked him.
Right.
Who else has he laid waste to in the wrestling business throughout his 20-something year career now?
I don't know.
Are we looking something? Can people Google this and send it to us?
Again, the propensity may not have gone public. Who knows? But let's go back to this.
Wait, hold on here a second. Hotchkiss rearranged my desk. I can't reach my dictionary.
Good.
Or I would look up propensity and see how many times you have to do something before it's a propensity.
On April 16, 2023, Nemeth contacted executives within AEW to tell his employer that he was worried Brooks would come back to the wrestling circuit following a suspension and assault Nemeth. When did he tweet that CM Punk was the softest man alive? When was that?
Somewhere around that time. and that's the thing. Okay, I've poked the bear, but I don't want to get in front of the bear while I've got peanut butter smeared all over my face. But at the same time, again, if Nick Nemeth ever thought, and this was before that Punk front face locked Jungle Jack off. So basically, Punk had kicked the shit out of the 2 guys that busted into his locker room that night. That was the sum total of it. And why would Nick Nemeth think that he was important enough in the scheme of things in Punk's life or anybody else's for that matter, that his nattering on Twitter would get him more than cussed out or potentially, as what happened, told not to fucking come around no more. Don't come around here no more. 'Cause you disrespected me. Don't come around here no more. Blame it all on Phil.
I thought you were doing Tom Petty. You went in a completely different direction. But let's go back to... go ahead.
Nevertheless, why would he think he's that important and Punk's going to beat him up? He would probably just cussed him out.
On June 21st, 2023, Following Brooks's return to the wrestling circuit, he assaulted Nemeth in the male talent locker room.
Wait a minute. I thought he assaulted Nemeth in the male parts. That's what I thought you were going to say.
In a menacing manner, Brooks shouted at Nemeth, quote, "Do we have a fucking problem? Do we need to step outside and handle this like men?" Nemeth was cornered by Brooks and did everything he could.
Where's the assault?
Nemeth was cornered by Brooks and did everything he could in order to de-escalate the situation. The next day...
begging off? Wait a minute. No, man, you got it all wrong.
I mean, is he saying that CM Punk's saying to him, if you got a problem with step outside, that's the assault? Not an assault, but that's the assault?
Apparently, that's the assault. And the pepper.
The next day, Nemeth was contacted by Tony Schiavone and other executives from AEW to explain what happened. Nemeth calmly and factually explained that he was attacked by Brooks in the locker room.
Attacked!
Following the assault, nothing happened to Brooks as far as punishment from AEW. It is well known in the wrestling industry that benching a wrestler is a form of punishment. That is, the wrestling performer is not scheduled for a match and thus is not paid. Benching a wrestler is a customary manner of punishing a wrestler. Let's stop there for a moment. What are your thoughts on benching a wrestler? Is it the same as benching a right fielder?
I think actually it's probably the weight bench there where he's bench pressing all the weight that he can handle. No, it's the lawyer's term. Nobody says we're going to bench this guy. We're not going to book him. And that, again, Nick Nemeth was on a per night contract. When we book you, we will pay you X dollars when we book you. And again, you're talking about a dispute with the highest paid contract star in the company at that time. Or if he wasn't, he should have been. So how is this even a goddamn discussion? Dipshit, you should have kept your mouth closed. Whether they're your friends or not, Punk doesn't care. But if you're going to call attention to yourself by being a smart ass, then you lose. It's Hollywood, and you're a bit player going up against Gloria fucking Swanson.
Following the incident with Brooks, Nemeth greatly feared being benched by AEW. Nemeth spoke with AEW's in-house counsel and attorneys from Latham and Watkins, outside counsel for AEW. All of the attorneys promised that Nemeth would not be benched. Following his June 22nd conversation with Tony Schiavone, etc., et al., Nemeth was not booked for a match for over 2 months. Because Nemeth was not booked for matches, his income stream from AEW dried up. More importantly, his popularity and marketability faded from being absent from the professional wrestling circuit.
Wait a minute, he's on TV like 5 fucking times. He didn't have to be absent from the professional wrestling circuit. He was absent from the company that he was working for. What do they were running at that time 2 times a week.
Right.
And maybe was he working every night for Ring of Honor on YouTube or whatever the fuck that we weren't aware? So at worst or at best case, they would have employed him on a full-time basis 8 days a month. And he wasn't on a contract, which meant he could book himself anywhere that he wanted to on any other day.
On June 17th, 2023.
And by the way, 4 of those days are Wednesday nights when nobody else runs in the fucking country anyway.
On June 17th, 2023, Nemeth again contacted AEW's legal department to complain that he was being punished for doing nothing. It was then that Nemeth discovered the real reason why he was being benched. Brooks had insisted upon this. Because Tony Khan had such a deep admiration for Brooks, bordering on an obsession, Khan went Khan went along
wait a minute. Of all the things that you could probably rightfully accuse Tony Khan of being somehow mentally obsessed with, would Punk have been number one on your fucking list?
For a while, maybe, actually. But, still. His deep admiration for Brooks bordering on an obsession, Khan went along with Brooks's desires to ruin Nemeth's career.
Wait a minute. Boy, if you'd have stopped there with a period, went along with his desires to feel the piss of another man running down his face. Oh, I'm sorry.
On April 12, 2023, Nemeth was finally booked for an event in Greensboro, North Carolina.
To feel the piss of another man running down his face. Oh, I'm sorry.
On the morning of August 12th, Nemeth was walking through the hotel lobby to board a shuttle to the sports arena, where the wrestling match would take place.
So the job guys get a shuttle bus now, huh?
He saw Brooks. Brooks immediately took out his phone and began to text. A moment after that text was sent, Nemeth received a text from AEW supervisor Pat Buck saying that he needed to speak with Nemeth as soon as he got to the arena. Upon arriving at the arena, Nemeth sought out Pat Buck. Buck told Nemeth that he needed to leave the arena immediately and that travel would be arranged for him to fly out of the same on the same day.
Not just get back on the bus and go back to the hotel, but you got to get out of town now. You got to get the fuck out of this town now. God damn it. What kind of fucking trouble have you caused us here? We got a plane ticket for you. We don't care where you land. Just fly somewhere.
Nemeth was embarrassed and humiliated in front of other wrestlers who witnessed him being kicked out of the arena. More importantly, fans observed
And they really didn't have to throw his bag out on top of him.
Fans observed him leaving the arena. Pictures were taken, and the expulsion became viral on social media.
I remember, don't you remember all the headlines? Nemeth leaves arena.
With all the pictures, all those paparazzi photos the fans were taking of him leaving the arena.
But the thing is, if you just printed the negative upside down, it looked like he was walking in.
This humiliation caused irreparable damage. I guess they missed the word too. The marketability and reputation of Nemeth. The entire episode was engineered by Brooks. Brooks demanded that Nemeth be told to leave and that he would be flown out of Greensboro immediately. Khan...
Did you say floon?
He would be flown out.
Did you say he would be flown out of Greensboro immediately?
Khan, for his part, went along with Brooks out of his deep admiration
and sexual desire to feel the touch of his testicles.
On August 15th, 2023, Nemeth contacted AEW's legal group and complained.
This is the greatest lawsuit I've ever read.
And complained about being ejected from the event at the direction of Brooks. AEW lawyers were themselves stunned and could offer no explanation for the conduct of Brooks and Khan.
They were gobsmacked.
That's what Tony wants.
My lawyers said, what the fuck? They don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah, I got to talk to my lawyers. I talked to your lawyers. They said you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Nemeth continued to follow up with AEW's legal department. On November 18th, 2024, Nemeth wrestled for the last time for AEW. Nemeth continued to follow up with AEW's legal department.
But hold up, but wait a minute. Punk's been gone for a year and a half. Punk got fired. So why are Punk's black balls or blue balls or whatever color Punk's balls are still applicable to Ryan Nemeth's continued employment at his company where the other guy that he's suing isn't even there anymore and left acrimoniously? Where's his leg to stand on?
Yeah, and again, if you're working in AEW and you don't have a contract, you're not one of the guys being paid to stay home. You're working on a per night thing. You got to do something else.
And does the suit, where do they get to where Punk was fired in September of 2024 or whatever it was. No, 23.
We're nearing the end of what is here. On November 18, 2024, he wrestled for the last time for AEW. Ryan Nemeth. Nemeth continued to follow up with AEW's legal department in the hope of trying to resolve this situation.
What is the situation? We don't want you to work for us anymore.
And to avoid further conflict. As in, there'll be a conflict unless you give me money. That's what it is.
I want to work for you. We don't want that. There's the conflict.
In a bizarre email, AEW attorney Chris Peck reached out and threatened legal action against Nemeth and accused him of employing a ghostwriter in his emails. Clearly, you're not writing this.
Writers in the sky.
Who's writing these emails for you?
We've talked to you before. We know you're not capable of spelling all these words.
On November 25th, 2024, Brooks left AEW to wrestle for the organization's main competitor, WWE.
Wait a minute. What date?
A wrong date, November 25th, 2024.
A year later. It was 2023, and it didn't even last till November. Remember, it was warm weather.
Well, he debuted at Survivor Series, but he was already gone from the company from AEW before that. That wasn't when he left AEW.
Yeah, no, he left AEW right after the stadium. The stadium was September, right?
Let me go back to the last few here. Khan was heartbroken by the departure of Brooks, his idol, and that he adored in every way.
The first time ever I saw your face, the earth moved in your eyes.
Khan was heartbroken by the departure of Brooks, his idol, and that he adored in every way. Khan was furious with Nemeth. Khan believes that Brooks left AEW because of Nemeth.
It was Nemeth. Nemeth.
The defendants have embarked on a campaign to blackball Nemeth from professional wrestling. Specifically, Tony Khan blames Nemeth for Brooks leaving AEW and has used his significant resources to make sure that Nemeth can never again make a living in wrestling.
Well, wait a minute. Shouldn't he be able to, besides the fact that, as we just mentioned, he's in TNA, which is now working with WWE, and he's probably making about the same thing there he's making in AEW, but how can they shouldn't they blame Jungle Jack for Punk being, since that was Nemeth had nothing to do with any of that. You
want to talk about what killed your way to make a living in wrestling? This suit.
It was Perry that you would have to blame, and that should be the word, blame, for Punk no longer being there, because he's the one that actually caused the goddamn mess. Because he couldn't fucking stop being childish and shut his dick liquor either.
And finally here, the conduct of each of the defendants was malicious in that defendants intended to cause injury to the plaintiff. Defendants acted willfully and with a conscious disregard for the rights of the plaintiff. And that's all we have from this purported suit. Ryan Nemeth has filed against AEW, Tony Khan, CM Punk, et al.
Who is Al? I've always wanted to know.
Again, we'll see what happens. This reads like it's a shakedown of Tony Khan. And anyone else, anyone else he can get a few bucks out of, like CM Punk or Shad Khan. This just
he ain't going to get any money out of Punk, and if you get money out of one con, you get money out of all the cons. But I don't even know if it's the more serious attempt is just to get go-away money just from Tony to settle a lawsuit and avoid bad publicity and the fans not liking him, which we know is a sore spot with Tony. Or if it's more just to get publicity anyway, because it's written in such a ridiculous way that we couldn't stop laughing reading it, that any serious barrister.
You didn't get a paragraph. The first sentence was he's a successful actor, and we started laughing.
Well, yeah. I mean, On the other side of this, well, I would say with anybody, but maybe because it's AEW, I would say normally on the other side of this would be a serious attorney, experienced, level-headed, reasonable, and well-versed in all the different ways that you could pick this fucking thing apart. And it's ridiculous. But since it's AEW and their legal staff, holy mackerel, I don't know. They picked a few doozies on that one since they've been in the wrestling business.
Can I ask you a question based on your experience in Titan Tower? And it was a long time ago, different company, everything, you know? Is it the case that any talent could just reach out to legal at any time about any issue they feel they're having? They reach out to legal, not HR, not anything else, but legal? Why is he reaching out to their outside counsel and their inside counsel on multiple occasions? What the hell is that about?
That's the thing. I guess technically, if any of the wrestlers back in the day had ever wanted to call the legal department, if they could picked up the phone, called the office and asked for somebody and got put through, and I don't know what the fuck they would have said. And unless there was some outstanding issue that they had with a contract or it wasn't common for anybody, especially that low on the food chain, to be calling the legal department discussing whether or not they were going to get booked. If they had an existing contract and they had an issue or something to do with royalties, it'd probably be the only reason I can think of when anybody would have ever been talking to the legal department. And since this guy didn't have a fucking contract, he was booked on a per night basis, which meant 5 times or 50 this year. We don't know, and you'll find out when we do.
Yeah, see, that's what I want to know. What kind of deal does he have? Because why would there be any expectations?
Like whenever anybody else says anything or has a sob story, Tony gives them money or they give them attention or the fucking legal staff goes into turmoil and starts talking about they'll support him and die. I'll love you till the end of time. Well, now they're praying for the end of time to hurry up and arrive, because if they got to spend another minute with you, they don't think they can barely survive. They will go overboard telling you, oh, we're going to work on this and we're going to stay in touch with us. We're going to, instead of coming out and saying, you are a job guy. You are not important in the scheme of things in this roster. You're on a per night contract. You instigated ill feelings with this guy, but he's gone, but we still don't want to use you because we got 1 million fucking wrestlers. So have a nice life. But they were probably still going, oh, we'll work out the situation, or putting him off, or just being mealy-mouthed. And so now he thinks, well, I'll sue these fuckers and they'll give me something, or at least people will read this and it'll be everywhere, and he gets to call Tony Khan names in his lawsuit that everybody's going to read. The more people will read this because it's a lawsuit than if he'd have said this and posted it on Twitter. So he gets to call Tony a fucking,
I don't think
basically queer for punk.
I wonder if he wrote this, because I can't imagine a lawyer writing this. I mean,
well, I can imagine a lawyer that would actually attach his name to this, writing it, because other people would have serious shit to do. This has no hope of anything other than an appeal to Tony Khan's sensibilities. As far as I want him to stop saying these things. Here, go. You were mean to me.
This is the only way you can get Punk and Tony Khan to talk, just to go, this fucking guy.
Well, I tell you, are you talking about the first fucking guy or the second fucking guy? Oh, I don't even remember which number this fucking guy is. But yeah, it's publicity, and it's a stunt, and it's a Hail Mary.
That's what I see it as, a Hail Mary. I think Tony Khan, for all of his faults, he did not blackball Ryan Nemeth he's not the reason WWE is not going to hire Ryan Nemeth. Tony Khan's not the reason. You are correct. If Tony Khan could blackball someone, he would just send them to Bulgaria and pay them until they could leave. That's his way of blackballing people. But Jim, unfortunate for Ryan Nemeth, people like CM Punk may have some friends, may know some attorneys, may know the right attorney who knows wrestling, and will kick the shit out of anyone who gets in his way.
Well, you are correct about that. And that's why that back in the old days, back in the dark ages, the wrestlers weren't calling up the legal department. But now, if you've got a legal department that needs to be called to tell them that something's illegal, that they've legally done illegally, then we got a legal eagle that's going to be a beagle on top of your case. Then he's going to turn into a bulldog and all those other aphorisms. And it's this man, the one, the only.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. He'll sue the rest.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the bulldog that, well, he's got a warm and juicy nose like a beagle, but he's a bulldog in court, and he will grab a bite of your milk bone underwear and he will rip it to shreds until he gets what he wants. And I assure you, when Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com, 877-50-STEVE, is on a suit of any kind, a leisure suit, a three-piece suit, a suit in court, or he's just going to suit you up, that suit will suit you, is what I'm trying to say, Brian. Have you ever wanted to be suited by a suit? You will be suited by the suits brought by Stephen P. New, newlawoffice.com. 877-50-STEVE is the contact name and number for the person who can bring you to the promised land of justice. Oh, we have the time, but if I could only say what I want to say right here on the podcast now. But more will be coming sooner or later, folks, about the various suits of Stephen.
Much more
the suits of Stephen. The suits of Stephen are going to be more important than the coat of many colors.
I can't wait. I can't wait to tell you about what's going to come. There may be a whole line of new programming to tell you about what's been going on. But Stephen P. New, the man for you. 877-50-STEVE. Jim, I have a question here. Sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com. From John in Largs, Scotland.
That hit where?
He's in Largs, Largs, Scotland.
Oh, I thought you lards, like Crisco, like fat.
Hi,
like
Jim.
Grease.
Hi, Jim. I was wondering if there has ever been any protocol for if a wrestler suddenly has extreme diarrhea during a match. Or even a manager, referee, announcer, anyone who is part of the show. And if you have any stories where something like this took place.
Well, no, didn't we just talk about shitting yourself in a match not long ago?
We may
Somebody
have.
had come up with that question, and of course, and Dusty Rhodes had the muffler gimmick, and I talked about when I had diarrhea at the Smoky Mountain Spot show, and the principal of East High School, every time I'd take a bump or he'd land on me, I would shit myself. But I guess it doesn't happen as much in the old days, or as much now as it did in the old days, because people wrestle less often. If you're working for a big company, if you're shitting yourself, then chances are they're going to say don't work, but you'll still get paid. Obviously, back in the day when a guy wrestled with diarrhea or stomach flu or whatever, it wasn't because he enjoyed the prospect, it was because he needed to have the match to get paid. And if it was still, even today, if it was a big pay-per-view match or something integral to television or whatever, I bet you a guy would probably not reveal he was shitting like a goose every 5 seconds. He would try to get by with it regardless and wear dark colors. But it's going to happen as a course of life, that sooner or later, you're going to have eaten the Taco Bell, or the Papa Murphy's calzone isn't going to be all the way cooked, and shit's going to happen, no pun intended. And, then it happens. I mean, everybody would have a story. I have my personal story, but I would think everybody would have their own story of at various points when they had shit themselves, either in training more often now in modern times or in an actual match in front of people back in the old days. And it just, you went on with it.
Jim, several listeners have sent this in, so I might as well ask you. Vince Russo issued a tweet on February 21st. As my retirement plan now comes into form, I can tell you that on my 65th birthday, I will stop watching any and all WWF programming for good. So that leaves about 11 more months of me being one of the only podcasters who will be brutally honest with you about the poor, underachieving, creative quality of the show. So enjoy the honesty and truth while you can.
Oh my God. I think we have been fairly forthcoming in our thoughts and opinions, but nevertheless, he's got to hog all the oxygen, take all the attention. He's going to be 65 in 11 months. That makes me feel good because he's still just a little tinge older than me. One step closer to the grave there, pal. And he didn't say he wasn't going to watch any wrestling. Does that mean that his new shtick, as they say in the business, is how many movies has Shitstain been in lately? But nevertheless, is that going to be that he talks about the other wrestling and how bad he wants to work for the other companies if they would only employ him, but he's going to leave the WWE alone? Or is he going to be completely silent and away from the fucking world where we don't have to suffer his presence? Is he retiring completely or just, I could say I'm not going to watch any more wrestling. That doesn't mean I'm not going to do any more shows. So we may not be rid of him yet.
Well, there's the answer for everyone who
is this just another plea, another in the constant string, daisy chain, if you will, of desperate pleas for attention and look at me and somebody give me a fucking job that he has been doing for years now? He threatens to leave and go away, hoping someone will argue with him. It's like the person that says, no, I don't want the last donut, and somebody else takes it and they get mad.
Well, there's the retirement update. We will now continue on with the show, the stuff that people like. Jim, how about a little guess the program?
Boy, howdy, I was thinking you'd never say that.
All right, I got some programs here. I got some interesting ones.
I got some answers right over here.
Let's start with this one. Let me make sure it has a date. Here we go.
We should mention, just for the new folks, you take a program from your voluminous collection.
My connection.
Or your connection, and you read me the card, and I, in my borderline mystical way, am supposed to get the place, the city or state, whatever, and the date of same, the year of same.
That is correct. That is correct. In this first program here, there's a few things marking it up. Should I give you the card as it's listed, or should I give you the changes that were made?
Give me the card that was listed.
The opening bout, Jay Youngblood versus Dr. X. The second bout, Dale Lewis versus Dutch Savage. The third bout, Buck Vumoff.
Vumoff?
Vumoff versus Gorilla Steve Lawler. All of those preliminaries, one fall, 15-minute time limit. A special bout, Maddie Suzuki versus Playboy Buddy Rose. And the main event, for a title I will not name, the champions, Lonnie Main and Les Thornton versus John Anson and Sam Oliver Bass.
And we are definitely in the Don Owens Northwest Portland territory. And just to go down the card, Jay Youngblood and X, I was thinking, are we going to the Mid-Atlantic here, the Carolinas, but then Dale Lewis and Dutch Savage? brought me back, and we stayed there because I remember Buck Zumhoff did have a run, even though he broke in for Vern Gagne in Minnesota. He did have a run in Portland, and Gorilla Steve Lawler didn't work that many places. I didn't remember him in Portland, but Matty Suzuki and Buddy Rose again confirms it. And then Moondog Mayne and Les Thornton, John Anson and Sam Oliver Bass, note the initials there. That was Ron Bass, Outlaw Ron Bass. And John Anson, why am I not remembering who he became or what?
I'm not sure. Let me look that up. It says Hollywood,
But nevertheless,
Hollywood, California, 263 pounds.
I swear we should know him as someone else, but nevertheless, it's probably Portland. I'm going to say it was Portland at the Sports Arena. And the only thing I'm going back and forth on is whether the year was 1977 or 1978. And I'm going to go with 1977.
Well, a good way to start today. We are in Portland. Don Owen presents at the Portland Sports Arena, July 2nd, 1977.
Boom! Because Jay Youngblood was young. Dale Lewis and Dutch Savage were aging. Moondog Mayne was still alive. Ron Bass had been Ron Bass the previous year and would be Ron Bass again, but yeah, so there you go.
John Anson was also Carl von Schatz.
There you go. I knew he was somebody.
And according to this, the turnbuckle, cruel weapon. The turnbuckle, 12 of them on every ring, provided the callous wrestler with a formidable weapon. By running an opponent's head or back into the turnbuckle, he can cause considerable pain and often injury. Unfortunately, there is no way to remove the turnbuckle. They are a vital part of the ring, providing the necessary resiliency and support. No one has yet devised a better way of supporting the ropes. But in the hands of the uncaring wrestler, it's blurred out, but in the hands of the uncaring wrestler,
or the unearring wrestler,
they became a weapon almost as dangerous as a club. Really putting over their turnbuckles over there in Portland. Let's move to the next one here. This one is one of those ones that you'll probably get. Maybe you'll get the year. It's more the story of what's on here. The opening bout, the Hooded Terror versus Billy Graham. Jesse James versus Big Rick Miller. The giveaway match, Pepe Perez versus Hobo Brazil. And finally, the main event, Wild Bull Curry versus Pat Sullivan.
Oh, good Lord. Well, this has to be obviously a Jack Pfeffer production. And one would think with Bull Curry, it's Massachusetts, the Indies. Billy Graham, certainly that is not the superstar, one would think. Is there any picture to back that up?
Certainly not the superstar. Certainly not.
Okay. And Jesse James, that was a real recognized wrestler for years and years. But yeah, with Hobo Brazil on the card, I've got to. Bull Curry is on top in an independent in Boston or the area and the year. Just would it be 64, 65?
Is that your guess?
Yes.
The Boston Arena Annex, Thursday, August 18th, 1966.
There you go.
Tony Santos with Jack Pfeffer's brains behind him, but on the front cover, Frankie Scarpa, the United States heavyweight champion, and it says, "Still no answer." And there's a picture of Bruno Sammartino here. "We are waiting, Mr. WWWA." That's interesting. Not F, but A. "Why won't Bruno meet Scarpa?" Bruno Sammartino, Who did he ever really beat? Where did his belt come from? What value is it? These are questions that fans have a right to know the answers to. Why doesn't he meet Scarpa? Is the WWWA afraid? Why does he wrestle the same wrestlers over and over? Come up with your answers, Mr. WWWA. Are you all afraid that the kettle might blow the lid off? This is an open letter to the New England wrestling fans, the pot, WWWA, calling the kettle black. And under kettle, it says Santos.
Well, and by the way, that they'd only been calling it the WWWF for 2 years, so Pfeffer's probably that Worldwide Wrestling Alliance they got going on. The WW, it's oh my God! And I guess the same questions could be said about what was their champion at that point?
The champion here is Frankie Scarpa.
Frankie Scarpa. Well, where did his belt come from, and what meaning does it really have? We would like to know.
There's some interesting photos here.
That's why they took Paul Bowser's goddamn greatest city and they were running the Boston Arena Annex by 66. No wonder they were about to be absorbed by Vince Sr.
All right, let's go to this one. The first bout, Billy Parks versus Bobby Nelson. 60-minute time limit, 2 out of 3 falls.
Jesus Christ. Okay, we're going back a few years.
The second event, Australian tag team bout, Billy Goals and Walter Palmer versus Rudy Kay and Benito Gardini. 60-minute, 2 out of 3 falls. Please refrain from smoking. The main event, Vern Gagne.
Please refrain from smoking the main event.
Vern Gagne, 222 pounds, versus Hans Schmidt, 235 pounds.
Oh, good Lord. We are obviously in the Chicago area. And in the early 50s, Billy Gales and Walter Palmer, Rudy Kay, and Benito Gardini were straight off of the Chicago television and Marigold Arena and etc. And as Vern Gagne and Hans Schmidt were two of the biggest stars for Fred Kohler at that point in time, and Billy Parks and his friend Ozzie Nelson or whatever the fuck were opening the card, that's not big enough for a Chicago lineup. Would I be wrong? I know you can't answer, but would I be wrong in thinking out loud that it's one of the smaller towns around is it Angola, Indiana? Is it one of the other smaller clubs, as they used to say, around the Chicago area, not just Marigold Gardens, but Rainbow Arena?
Well, I will give you that it's a club or at least a spot show around Chicago. I will give you that.
Okay.
Very good. The way you're putting this together is very good.
Well, and then I can't really just be a shot in the dark to go which one, because they were running in the early 50s. The Chicago metropolitan area would have 4 live wrestling shows every week at at Marigold and at Rainbow and at wherever. And then the big shows were at the International Amphitheater. So narrowing it down would be fruitless. Now the question is, what year would it be? And, oh God, I think just because it's Schmidt on top with Gagne, Schmidt wasn't on top until 52 or 3, or was it? Or maybe 53, 54, but it's before the, let's go with 1950 fucking 3 in suburban Chicago.
Once again, great job today. We are in Salem, Illinois, at the Salem Elks, Lodge number 1678.
That old place.
March 31st, 1953.
Boom!
Very good.
Got a run going today, kind of.
You do. Let's go to our next one here. The opening bout, Art Valentino, Detroit, versus Jack Atkinson, Dallas. 1 fall, 15-minute time limit. The second bout, Gene Albert versus Benito Mata. The third event, Ted McKay versus Mara Duba. Oh, excuse me, this is a tag bout. Ted McKay and Mara Duba versus Chief Lone Eagle and Alvin Jones. The semifinal, from Louisville, Kentucky, Jack Bernard versus Pierre Rene, Montreal. And we have a double main event from Death Valley, the Demon Jack O'Brien versus out of Boston, Nature Boy. Best 2 out of 3 falls, 60-minute time limit. And finally, the other main event, Johnny Dobbs, Omaha, Nebraska, versus Irish Jack Kennedy, Dallas. 2 out of 3 falls, no time limit.
Kennedy in Dallas, huh? Jack Kennedy. Well, we are in Dallas or that environ, Dallas or Fort Worth or thereabouts in Texas. And this is an example of the names that you wrote up: Benito Mata, and Ted McKay, and Mara Duba. And alone it was Alvin Jones, brother of Marvin Jones, who was later on become a referee that was famous for having a big belly and those white T-shirts in all the old 50s wrestling magazines. You've heard of Jack O'Brien. He was a level of name at the time. And Nature Boy was not Buddy Rogers, I assume, because his full name would have been used. He wasn't from Boston. And Jack Kennedy from Dallas was a guy that was used on top in Dallas in 1953 and 54, when the only lasting name on this card, Jack Atkinson, who was in the opening match, was a Southern Methodist University graduate who was just starting to appear on local wrestling shows at the Sportatorium in Dallas or at the Fair Park Coliseum, I think they called it, when the Outlaws in Texas, there was a promotional war, had set fire to the Sportatorium and tried to burn it to the ground and burned half of it. And they were out at the Fair Park with the wrestling matches every week while that was being rebuilt. And the Sportatorium that you saw in the 80s on World Class Wrestling was the rebuilt Sportatorium. It used to seat, I think, 6,500 instead of 4,500 or whatever. But that would put this at 1953 or maybe early 1954, because Jack Atkinson was still in the opening match. And you can see that wrestling in Texas at that time, in Dallas, it wasn't a big money proposition because there weren't any of the big national names really doing anything at that point in time, possibly because of the promotional conflict that was going on. So Dallas, 1954, let's say.
Oh.
No, is it still 53?
I gave it away, but you had it. I was disappointed. The Dallas Wrestling Club, Ed McElmore promoter, the Sportatorium, Tuesday, March 3rd, 1953.
Oh, God damn it. All right.
A few interesting things in here. See and hear Candy Candido, radio, movie, stage, and TV star on the Big D Jamboree, Saturday, March 7th, 8:15 at the Sportatorium. Be here or tune in, KRLD. And then there's a section here. Heavyweight champion Dunn reveals new claim to title.
Roy Dunn, right?
Affidavits confirm his claim, and there are a couple affidavits attached here. Who is the real champion? Dunn willing to meet any other title holder. Who is the real world heavyweight champion? Is it the man who now actively defends the same belt worn by Jim Londos, Ed Lewis, and Everett Marshall? Who is the man ready and willing to meet any challenger? That man is Roy Dunn. If you do not believe that he is as good as the new Alliance champion Lou Thez, then wouldn't you think that the Alliance champion would meet Dunn and settle the matter? That's all Dunn wants. In fact, he will wrestle Thesz for nothing and donate a sizable sum of his own to a charity just to meet Thesz and clear the issue. What more could he do? Can you blame promoter Ed McLemore for backing Dunn? Would you do otherwise if you were a wrestling promoter? True enough, the Dunn situation wasn't brought to light until lately as far as Texas is concerned, but once it was, McLemore was quick to put it before the public. You can see what happened. McLemore was cut off from his regular supply of Alliance wrestlers, whether the wrestlers liked it or not. If they violate the trust, they are automatically blackballed almost anywhere but in Dallas. McLemore believes that he now has a fine supply of wrestlers. New ones, and probably some of your former favorites, will return when they realize it would be best for wrestling, for themselves, and for the fans. Reconsider these facts. 1. Roy Dunn has a real championship belt. 2. It's the real Alliance belt awarded by an earlier 1930 Alliance. 3. Dunn won the belt from Everett Marshall, a fully recognized champion who followed Louis Landis and others. 4. This is the most important. Dunn still has the belt. And 5, I gotta go to page 14, read the above affidavits, and they will clear up the reasons why Thesz will not meet Dunn. One of Dunn's managers, Billy Sandow, who celebrated 50 years of wrestling on his 70th birthday in Dallas last January, can give you a much fuller story about the championship picture. There are no facts known to us that we are trying to conceal. In fact, our case could be made 10 times stronger, although it would harm past favorite wrestlers and wrestling as a whole, which of course shouldn't be the desire of any promoter. In
other words, we could spill our guts about all these motherfuckers, but we don't want to totally shit our bed because we got to live here.
No matter how he presents his side of an issue. The affidavit should give you a different light of the matter, and there are 2 affidavits, one from Jimmy Frank Raymond, a notary, Jackson County, Missouri. Signed by Howard Siegel, that's the notary, and the other one signed by Max Orgain with a separate notary. And it's all about how Roy Dunn is the champion and Lou Thesz isn't. What can you tell the audience about Roy Dunn?
Well, Roy Dunn was an old-time shooter. He didn't have the reputation of the Frank Gotchas or the Strangler Lewises of the world, but he was on top a lot for Muchnick in the 40s in St. Louis. You would see the name Roy Dunn popping up before the television era. But this ties into the promotional conflict they were having that I mentioned a minute ago when they burned the Sportatorium down, or half of it down. And I can't remember all the details, and it's worth, again, looking up in various research books we don't have time to go into now, but Ed McLemore had been the Dallas promoter for some time, and his name was still in the early 80s, I think, associated with the Dallas office, but he had gotten on the outs with the Alliance, and you saw the talent that he had on that card was not exactly household names even for that era. And there was opposition running, and they'd had the arson thing, and they were trying to run each other out of business. And this is a grandstand challenge of the old days of wrestling. My champion is real and can beat your champion. Your champion's scared to fight my guy. The guy that was scared is always the big name with everything to lose, and they didn't want to put the underdog over. But years later, McLemore would get back in with the Alliance, and Southwest Sports, as it existed in the 1980s when it was world-class wrestling, Jack Adkisson started on these shows in 1953 and 54, and then, as everybody knows, moved on, went to Buffalo, became Fritz von Erich, became a national star, went back to Texas, got over as the top guy, and ended up buying into the promotion and owning pretty much all of it with a few minor partners by the time it was all over with. So that was another thing, that Dallas was not a big money wrestling center in the 40s and 50s. It was another thing, like Florida, when Eddie Graham went to Florida, got over as the top guy, bought into the office, built the fucking thing. Fritz kind of did the same thing with not as much success in terms of what Eddie Graham did with Florida and the number of markets that were all firing for so long. But Fritz made wrestling in Dallas-Fort Worth a big deal and was drawing ballpark crowds, 25,000 for his world title matches in the 60s. That had never happened in Dallas, Texas before in wrestling. So it's kind of an interesting history, as even though Dallas is noted in modern times for being a big wrestling market, it wasn't that way. It was certainly no Chicago for the first 50 years of the last century. Am I droning now?
Not at all. And according to this program, every Tuesday, watch wrestling, KRLD TV, 12:30 p.m. and 7 p.m. Listen to wrestling, KLIF, 5:15 p.m. So they really packed it in on Tuesday.
And this is 1953. I bet you maybe the nighttime show may have been the Dumont Network or Hollywood Wrestling or whatever, but 12:30 in the day, I wonder, did they have a local program at that point, that early in Dallas?
We'll see what we can find out. And let's end with this program. One last program here. The opening bout, one fall, 15-minute time limit. Cyclone Anaya versus Leo Wallach.
I've heard of him.
The second bout.
Leo Wallach. Okay, hold on here. I'm catching up to you now.
The second bout, Jack Claiborne versus Buddy Jackson. The third bout, the final one fall, 15-minute time limit bout, Ray Gunkel versus Aldo Bogny. The next bout, the semifinal, it's a handicap match. Kiyomuka agrees to toss both men in 60 minutes or forfeit his purse. Duke Kiyomuka versus Rito Romero and Black Guzman. Or Guzman, I guess you would.
Blackie Guzman.
Guzman.
Manuel Blackie Guzman.
And the main event, 2 out of 3 falls, 90-minute time limit. Chris Tolis versus Bull Curry.
Oh, good Lord. Okay. I believe we have ended up in Texas again, but there's a strong case that could be made for a little Florida. But no, now that I'm looking at it, okay, Cyclone Anaya was a journeyman name that I would think would probably have been around in the middle of his career at this point in time. Leo Wallach, was he Chet Wallach's brother? Chet and Leo Wallach. He later became a referee, I think. Jack Claiborne and Buddy Jackson were both black wrestlers, and if you didn't read it on this lineup, I bet you they were billed as either top Negro Stars battle or potentially even some type of American or United States Negro Championship involved.
Let me answer that while you ask it. Gentleman Jack Claiborne, the Negro wrestler with springs of steel in his legs, will make his bow in Dallas tonight when he faces big and tough Buddy Jackson.
And you just read me the goddamn town.
Shit. Oh, goddamn it.
But hold on. We've still got a year. I knew it was Texas.
You did.
I knew it was Texas to begin with. Ray Gunkel is a fish out of water here because he would be more noted for being a Georgia wrestler or in the southeastern United States, but he was also an NCAA champion before he was a pro, and he did travel a little bit in the various territories. And I'm going to say that this is probably before that he became a big star in Atlanta. Aldo Bogny was tag team partners with Bronco Lubitsch, who became the referee in Dallas, noted for not being able to go down and count because he was so old. Duke Kiyomuka go on to greater fame in Florida, but again, this is before he became an integral part of the Florida office. Rito Romero was a huge babyface in Texas and especially West Texas, and Miguel Blackie Guzman was one of the top names in the history of lucha in the, I think, even late 40s and 50s, and he ended up at the end of his career in the mid to late 70s, for some reason, living in Indianapolis and doing jobs for Bruiser. Chris Tolos and Bull Curry in the main event. Curry was a huge draw in Texas in this time period, and Chris Tolos was John's brother, but was often a single. And because of the people involved and where they are, this has to be the early 60s. You tipped it to Dallas. I was going to go with Texas anyway. And would this be 1961, 1962?
Huh. Interesting. No, it wouldn't be.
No?
This is Tuesday, January 9th, 1953.
Shit, I was 10 years off.
Let me read you something here on the cover. This, by the way, Pappy Showland, where you see wrestlers of proven ability. Facts. In case you have read or heard any grandiose claims about last week's comparative progress in the wrestling war, here are the facts. Pappy Showland drew the biggest crowd it had to date. A capacity throng of excited fans, better than $2,200. The other place failed to gross $600. And in case you have read false and misleading statements about Doc Sarpolis being with the former Dallas promoter as a team, mark it down as more propaganda designed to confuse you.
And by the way, that's Doc Sarpolis was the promoter that the Funks always, mentioned out in Amarillo in West Texas. And he was a early member of the NWA and a blah, 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 major name in behind the scenes in wrestling. And he had flipped over to the other fucking group at one point and then went back, as I recall. But that's why the West Texas was invading East Texas and there was all this drama going on.
Bet your money that Sarpolis is not with them, never has been with them, and never will be with them. And that's the card here. So we have one from each side of the opposition.
Ray Gunkel threw me the fuck off because I was thinking, well, I didn't remember he started so early. And I was thinking, is this maybe before he would have gone to Georgia somehow? But I fucked up majorly on that.
All right. Well, we will end with that one. You began with such success.
Yeah. So let's end on the fuck up. All righty then. Well, good day to you too.
You know, we went a long time. Next week, From the Files returns. We'll have another fun one next week, and next week more of the usual hilarity. But until then, the drive-thru is closed. See, just nothing's working today. It's just not happening.
Oh yeah, I see. I didn't hear a lot of that. So yeah, you got to work on this all again. My hands are clean.
More of this next week on the show, and of course on the Jim Cornette Experience, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Go through the archives, patreon.com/Cornette. Only $5 a month. Patreon.com/Cornette. Of course, the official YouTube channel. Hear this episode, clips from the episode, the omnibuses, so much more. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. It'll be the very first thing that pops up. Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com. Go and see whatever they're saying on the front page at JimCornette.com. The drive-thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New, 877-50-STEVE. Get even with Stephen. NewLawOffice.com. But until the experience in a few days, and next week back here on the drive-thru, for Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally-ho!